Marcel Irnie, welcome to the show. This is a pleasure for me because I've heard so much about you, and a lot of people that watch my channel watch your channel as well, and so many people recommend me to go watch your videos, and I've watched several over the course of the Convoy, which is when I largely became active in this sort of realm. And then I kept hearing your name, so I've checked out a lot of your videos talking about those subjects. But it seems like there's a lot more depth to Marcel Irnie. Welcome to the show, by the way.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here, and I've been following you for since at least February or of a year ago, and just love the work you do, and I love how you just analyze everything in depth. And so it's one of my favorite shows, and my brother's as well. And we both pretty much same but different. I think we both kind of got into it, during the bullshit 19 era, I call it, and. We just had to change, what we were doing in our lives, right?
Yes, yes. Well, I was a little bit of a latecomer when it came to talking about the political situation that we're all dealing with. This is I really got into it when the Convoy took off. I was like everybody else, like, oh, this will blow over hopefully sooner than later. Then it was 2 years, and then it was like, okay, I can't keep my silence anymore. But I mean, everybody in the channel knows my story. What's yours? So you're a professional racer, I hear, and I know you know that you're into motorbikes, and I knew that this was a big passion in your life, but I wasn't aware that you had been professional for such a long time.
Yeah, pretty much. I got my first street bike in 2006, and I rode on the street for 4.5 months, and I did 18,000 kilometers in 4.5 months. Lucky to be alive. Went to the racetrack, and I did really well. Like right off the bat, I was, first session they moved me to the advanced racer only group. There's beginner, intermediate, racer sessions between a track day where they rent the racetrack.
Yeah.
And did really well. And then the next year, I sold the street bike, bought a race bike, and that was 2007. And in 20, I went across Canada to Nova Scotia to Shubenacadie in 2009, 2010, and started racing professionally in 2012.
Wow. That's such a quick stint. Like, a lot of people, they train since they're like kids to get into professional racing. It seems like you just jumped in it, like luck of the draw, I guess, having such talent.
I learned dirt biking as a youth. My old man got my brother and I into dirt biking, like enduro, cross country, hare scrambles, but just totally amateur. And then when we could actually get a steering wheel in grade 11 or grade 12, I fell in love with the steering wheel, and I started rallying, drifting. I bought a rally Miata, like a race Miata with a cage and fully built up, and started raced autocross and the nationals in Red Deer, in Vancouver as well, the BC champs. And I'm like, where can I go with car racing? It's so expensive to get on the racetrack and off of, a rally or et cetera, TSDs. And then my brother bought a street bike, and I gave it a try, and that was kind of how it hooked me. And then I started watching Ghost Rider as an example.
Okay, Ghost Rider. Well, yeah,
Do you remember Ghost Rider?
I remember the comic books. I didn't actually watch the. Okay, I see Nicolas Cage as like a comic book character.
Oh, no. You don't know. Ghost Rider is a motorcycle racer in Europe
Oh, I
that
thought you
rode
meant
on
the
the
actual
street.
like store, the movie. I'm like, what? No.
Yeah. No. He wore all black with a black motorcycle, black leathers, and the police would chase him in the streets of Stockholm, and he would make videos before YouTube existed, of police chases, and he would just have fun with it. And I was watching that when I first started. Kind
Whoa.
of inspired me. Yeah. So ironically, and when I was on the street, like I said, I'm lucky to have survived that period. And because I was dragging my knee on the streets and doing a lot of things I would never do today, because I know anytime you could just slip out. Even with all my skill now, you can crash unknowingly anytime, really.
Yeah, that's crazy. Actually, I had a neighbor. He moved away to another. I can't remember. Oliver. I think it is British Columbia, because there's a racetrack there. He got so
Area
enthralled.
27.
Yeah, he got so
Mm-hmm.
enthralled with racing bikes that he's like, I want to do this all the time. I'm just moving to where the track is instead of having to travel there all the time. But
Yeah.
he had a similar sort of thing to you. He started off, he had a bike, and then he bought a nicer bike. Then it was an Aprilia and I remember him coming home after like going for rides. He's like, this is the greatest thing in the world. And then one day he sold his Aprilia and he bought 2 race bikes for the price of the Aprilia. And
Yeah.
he explained to me, he's like, dude, it's so dangerous on the road. Like, it's crazy. I want to do stuff that I can't do on the road, and that the bike, it can do so much more. I want to go somewhere where I can do that, but I can do it safely. And that was his big kick. He was like, this is just
Yes.
really dangerous.
Unfortunately, racetracks in North America, they're not very safe at all. It's a big problem. It's very dangerous. The tracks don't have runoff. Nothing, if you watch Moto GP or World Superbike all around Europe and the world, they're on beautiful tracks with huge sandy runoffs, paved runoffs. Where I race, there's always walls. There's poles, there's everything. People die every year at these tracks in California, Washington, Oregon. I've been to Virginia, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, New York, and it's not like as safe as it should be. Unfortunately, there's no money in it. Since the cigarettes stopped sponsoring racing, the tracks, like cigarettes used to pay the tracks and pay the racers, and they would do the media and the marketing. And now, since cigarette advertising, the sport is just struggling with money, right?
Oh, weird. They can't get any other advertisers that want to advertise at race events?
There's not much money in it. It's such a niche sport, superbike racing. It's not like golf or NASCAR, where you have or baseball. It's very niche. And so that's why I started doing YouTube. I started to like share my race videos. I've always been a documentary filmmaker, but I would film on board with a helmet camera, with a mic in my helmet. I'd give live commentary. You got a tail cam, front cam, foot cam, boot cam, whatever. And that way I would create recognition, because there's not too many people at the tracks watching, but I would have, hundreds of thousands of people who would know I would from YouTube. And that's my whole purpose of YouTube, was to actually get sponsorship money to race. I just wanted to be the racer. I didn't want to be the financer, the mechanic, the transporter, and the technician, the suspension guy. I have to do everything, and it's very difficult.
Well, that's racing. So I'm a mechanic by trade. I work in an auto garage, and the auto garage started off as a race car auto garage. That's how it got its beginnings.
Nice.
And I mean, everyone remembers it from those beginnings. So everybody brings their race cars around, and we get to see a bunch of that. And I know firsthand. And when I was growing up, I grew up in Motor City, and all my friends were into drag cars. And so drag racing is much the same. It's a lot of money. It's a lot of...
Oh, it's even more money.
Yeah,
it's tons of money.
You're sinking a lot of coin into these things. And you might see like a day or two at the track. Like, that's about it. And you have to...
Well, yeah, it's months of prep for sometimes an hour on the track. Well, drag racing is way less. It's like autocross. You have a 10 seconds.
Yeah.
Luckily, like when I go to Portland International Raceway, they have, a quarter-mile drag strip. And then after the quarter mile ends, it's still another half a mile that I stay on the throttle and hit 6th gear, and I reach, around 300 kilometers per hour. And then I have to brake, drop 3 gears, and enter corner 1. And so that's where it really gets fun. Is like I get to do the drag strip and brake and steer and do the 9 corners and back on the drag strip again, right? So for me, it's just really nice to have it all.
That's crazy. I mean, I've seen videos of the motocross, or these fast bikes doing crazy things. You say that it's a niche thing. People aren't just watching it for the shock value. I mean, a lot of people, I guess, what is it? Car racing. You have massive amounts of people that'll watch like the GT racing, the Formula One, all of that stuff. So it's not quite the same, I'm guessing.
Well, Moto GP is very popular. So Moto GP is like Formula One. It's the ultimate top level of my sport. And every race is in a different country, and they do like 22 or 24 races a year. I am in the top of the sport in the USA and Canada. So in Canada, my best finish was 2nd at the Canadian Superbike Championship in Mossport, Ontario. In the States, in New Jersey, I got 6th place racing against the factory race team. So there's factory Suzuki, Honda, Kawasaki, Aprilia, Ducati. They show up with the semi trucks. They have a team of 20 people. and I'm just a team of one or two, and I was able to beat, half of the factory teams just based on skill because it was raining, and rain is a good equalizer because my machine is very much inferior to a team that spends millions of dollars, right?
So yeah, you rely on skill. I mean, you have different tires for rain, correct?
Absolutely. Yeah, we could actually drag knee in the rain. You don't drag elbow, but you could definitely drag knee. They're super gummy and they got lots of lines in them to get the water out so you don't hydroplane. But of course, you still hydroplane when you're
It's
ripping fast on a
terrifying
straightaway.
for me, man.
Oh yeah, on a street bike, just and then the tires wear out. After 10 laps, you might have a ball of your tire in the center because sometimes part of the track is dry, part is wet. You're searching for the puddles that keep your tire from melting on you. There's so many variables. It's crazy.
Oh, I never even thought of that. So like with rain tires, you actually need the ground to be wet or they get too hot.
Yeah. So if it's like, oh, the rain stopped, you're like, shit, should I run? What tires do I run? You got to make a decision before the race. Half the track's dry, half of it's wet. And you can imagine if you're running slicks and there's just four corners that are wet, you have to tippy toe through them. And it's super scary. It's like, it's like you're on ice with slicks. They have zero traction in the wet. Yet rain, but then the rest of the track, if you're running rain tires, now you're just have to go super slow through the dry and melting your tires. It's a very much a strategy decision.
Yeah, there's like no pit stops. It's not like Formula One where you quickly do a tire
Yeah.
change and then that's it. Oh, this is crazy. So there's so much that I don't know about motorcycle racing. I mean, I went to school for auto mechanics and I know all kinds about cars, but that's my forte, right? That's my thing. This is crazy. So you're doing the auto race or the bike racing, and you're obviously in your videos you're outdoors quite a lot, so you're an avid outdoorsman. What caused you to make this shift with your content to talking about what's
Okay.
going on in
Okay.
Canada?
Okay. So in March they shut down all the borders and they talked about COVID. The propaganda went wild, and I just ignored it. I'm like, the masks and all the bullshit. I just ignored it. I'm just going to dirt bike. So because I can't go across the border and race in the States. So racing in Canada, it's not my forte. There's no money in Canada. I race in the USA, right? Across everywhere. And so I can't go down there. So I started dirt biking and I'm like, I'll just be in the woods dirt biking, let this COVID bullshit blow over.
Mm.
Then the mandates started to get talked about. And then the election came in the summer of what was it? Just the summer of last year, right? And then I started to like,
Year before,
okay,
I think
there's
it was the
talking
year
about
before the election.
20 2021,
Yeah,
right? So
yeah,
I went
yeah.
through a whole year. I went through a year and a bit just ignoring it at all and just dirt biking, doing my own thing. And then they started talking about mandates, and I'm like, this is getting real serious. I'm gonna have to stop dirt biking and start researching. So I turned my life into, you spend your 10, 12 hours a day researching COVID-19, researching, vaccines. I won't say anything to spoil your YouTube. Don't worry.
Yeah, you
But
know the rules, right?
oh
All the
yeah,
things that
I've
the
lost.
euphemisms you have to say for this stuff.
I've had a lot of misinformation strikes, you could call them. I've had hate strikes for talking about Russia and Ukraine as well, because there's no COVID-19 misinformation. It's just they put it under hate. If you show a video of Sergei Lavrov, the Russian Minister of Foreign Affairs, talking at a diplomacy forum, this is a true story. I just showing Sergey talking, to reporters, and that got my channel hate strikes on both my channels. And I had a channel called Irnie Racing Reports, and you get 3 strikes, you're out. It's gone. You lose it forever, right?
Wow.
And so I've been dealing with that a lot. And I mentioned to you off camera how my channels are shadow banned. And essentially, because I've had so many strikes and I've gone through this process so many times, it's just the channel it went dead. I went from 2 million views a day on February 21st. At 9 p.m., the Emergency Act was on the February 21st. And at 9 p.m., my channel went from, 100,000 views per hour, right, to 5,000 and just dead. Like a heartbeat, dead, down, 0.
Wow.
And it's been like that ever since. At 9 p.m., exactly at 9 p.m., on the day they voted on the Emergency Act in Parliament, right?
Yeah, that's kind of strange, the timing of that. But we've been hearing about this from the Twitter files about the
Oh, it's proven.
yeah, about like the coordination between government agencies and social medias. I mean, we don't know what happened with YouTube. We don't know what's happened with Facebook or any of these other ones, but we know what happened with Twitter, so we can kind of put two and
Make
two
the
to,
same assumption.
yeah, you make the same assumptions at the similar contacts. And what's interesting about what happened with the Twitter files is that everyone kind of had an assumption that there was communication going on behind the scenes between government agencies. They just didn't realize how formal those communications actually were, and that's what's really so troubling about the whole ordeal. And then
Yeah, I
obviously,
mean, you read the emails, right? Obviously, we read through the emails on the Twitter file. Matt Taibbi was posting, every day more and more, and it's just like, hey, you need to look into these. Hey, can you remove these? Hey, we need to just boom. Can you do this, do that, right? Right from the FBI to freaking Twitter. It's ridiculous.
yeah, that's insane. And like state departments just calling up, hey, can you shut that down? I don't like hearing that guy. And then, with what's going on in Canada with the Bill C-11, that's being
Yeah.
rammed through. I mean, it went through it reluctantly. Went through the first time, went to the Senate, got rejected, sent back, said amend this, and then they shut down debate and rammed it through again. We'll see. We'll see what happens when it gets back to the Senate, but it's
That's
not
right.
looking.
Don't put all your eggs. Don't put all your eggs in YouTube, right? Because easily targeted now. Once they, the government will take a while to figure out their shit. Obviously, their algorithm and how they're going to affect us, like your channel and others like ours. But I guess I could get back to in the summer. So the election was announced, and I actually I researched and I realized the mistruths or the truths of what's going on. And I started to use my social medias like Facebook and Instagram. I started to share all the information from Dr. Brittle or Bridle, right? In Canada, and Dr. Hoff and all these people and what they're suggesting and saying, right down to Joe Rogan when he interviewed, Robert Malone and et cetera. And I was getting so much pushback on my Instagram and my Facebook, just so like family, like cousins, your friends from high school that you've known and dirt biked with. They're all just like, you're stupid. They just, the propaganda has gotten to so many people that at this point, in summer of 2021, I would only reach 5% of the people with my stories who would actually like consider what I'm saying. And I kept up, and then I started running the PPC flag. I went to the PPC place. I got their flags, put them all around Penticton at the time. And I'd have a crazy grandma rip up the flag on the, and she's telling me, oh, Maxine, he's racist. And I'm like, huh? And if you've researched that, you know how they attacked him, just like they attacked Christina Anderson. You call you a vile racist, right? And I didn't understand it at the time. Like, what do you mean? I didn't research Maxine into that, but now it all makes sense as you go on. And people believe it. The mainstream media says one thing, oh, he's racist. And then you have a grandma ripping up my signs, right? For PPC, the People's Party of Canada. And of course, then the election happened and they got, 5% of the vote or 6%, which is a lot better than they did the year before. But it just seemed like, man, these elections just feel like they're so rigged because there's so many people in Penticton running the PPC flags all around town. And then I lost my Facebook. All of a sudden, Facebook was suspended from sharing information. You always get those little warnings all the time on Instagram. You might have tried it yourself.
I don't
And
use
then I lost my
Facebook products,
Facebook.
so I have an Instagram,
Yeah.
and some people go over there to follow me, but then I don't really post there. So it's like people will unfollow me after, like, this guy, he doesn't post anything. But I know how stringent
So
they are. Their TOS is just like, yeah, it's BS, the BS TOS of Facebook
well,
or
it's
Meta
just the
products.
same. Yeah, it's the same as Google. It's the same as CensorTube, I call it. So essentially, they suspended my Facebook account, and you can go through the appeal process, and nobody ever reads your appeal. And unfortunately, I used Facebook to promote my motorcycle racing, so I had 650,000 followers on Facebook.
Oh wow.
And so it really hurt my marketing for my motorcycle career. I don't just race; I also teach rider training, so I would book students, and that's how I would monetize racing. In the end, sponsors are not loyal to you. They expect you to be loyal to them, but they never give you loyalty in return. And in the end, you're better off just working for yourself. And I would teach rider training. I would charge, $2,600 for 2 days or $1,000 a day, a high premium. And I was one of the best people at teaching rider training really in the world. If you actually look at how I did it, I have testimonial videos on the YouTube channel. I did it all with communication using mics. I would supply my students with helmets and I would yell at them on the track full time.
Oh, wow. That's pretty cool. So you tail behind them and tell them what they're doing wrong or give them tips?
Yeah, you essentially repeat. You just keep pushing whatever technique you're trying to instill into them until they create the repetition to make it happen. Because you could tell somebody, hey, you need to set up before the corner, set up before the corner. The next lap, they don't set up, and you yell at them again. But the repetition creates instinct. So I have to instill instincts in them. But if you didn't do that and you came off track and you talked about remember what you did on lap 4, it just doesn't work as quickly. So I was able to advance students remarkably quickly. And so this is how I was monetizing racing. And the reason I could do this is because I listen to music and I give live commentary while racing. Most people actually can't even talk while they're racing because it takes so much focus, right?
Yeah, I bet it does.
Yeah. Some people would even think, oh, that's dangerous. What you're doing is talking and filming and listening to music. And I'm like, I've learned how to do it. And I'm one of the top 6 in the country. So I don't know what the hell you're talking about.
Oh, well, that's awesome. That's a hell of a talent, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's really cool. But yeah, so then where does it go from there? You start losing all of your media.
So I lost my Facebook, and I'm all doing this for the help of everybody. It's for humanity, and I really was feeling really sad. I'm like, the world is doomed. Nobody's paying attention, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like the banking crisis of 2008. Nobody was paying attention to the bubble, and look what happened. And here's a new bubble we're in.
You're in another
Just don't tell everybody, right?
Yeah, right.
Oh yeah, and this one could be just as big. Everybody. Pretty soon the short selling will come on again, but. And then I'm like, you know what? Might as well start using my YouTube. And I started doing the same thing, sharing information on YouTube in December of 2021, I guess. And then we had January and February, and then the Freedom Convoy happened. And before the Freedom Convoy, I was going to the rallies in Penticton, in Kelowna. I was doing the Freedom. There was a convoy going to the Osoyoos border in the Okanagan. And I would document all these along with doing all the news I would think was relevant to try to teach people like, hey, you need to pay attention to what the bullshit is and what the vaccines are, and right now, as we could mention Janine Small. Well, who's Janine Small? She works at Pfizer. And what did she say on camera? Which is actually all over YouTube now, because YouTube actually updates their terms and conditions for the COVID-19 misinformation policy to now, they update them when they're forced to, because the consensus becomes obvious about something, whether they took out masks from it as an example, and they took out that it stops transmission, etc. Right? They keep updating the policies.
So I got only one warning. I didn't get an actual strike. It was a strike warning, and that was when the Pfizer documents came out. I did a video about it, and I actually showed the documents on the screen, and that was a big old no. I got spanked. The video got taken down. I got a warning that still exists on my channel. Still exists.
Same thing. Yeah, the warnings never disappear, and it's so annoying because it's always there on your dashboard every day.
Yeah, and it's annoying, especially because it would pass the TOS today. Like, it would be fine to talk about today, but today it still exists, and it still says what for and the date, and yeah, that's it's unfortunate. But yeah, that's something I'll have to live with on the channel. But it's made me wise up and be very prudent, I guess you could say, and just not avoiding content. I mean, I didn't really talk much about the meds or any of that stuff in the first place. My whole shtick was talking about the media lying to you. Like, this is really where my focus has always been. Look at these stories. They're lying to you. That's not true. And here's why. And that's the path I've followed. I notice a lot of people who follow the particulars of the science and get into the what went on with the certain medical interventions that went out there and were mandated on people. Those are the people that are getting hit the hardest during all of this time.
Yeah, and then that brings the topic, and I'll be very careful with my words. The mandates were based on that these emergency act procedures would stop transmission. And it's been proven by Janine Small under oath, who works for Pfizer as the international president of international, like the country setup. She says that, it didn't stop transmission. It was never, they never tested to stop about transmission before distributing the procedures, right? And so the mandates were based on one big lie.
Yeah.
And it's proven. They say it themselves, but there's still a huge percentage of the population that doesn't know this because the mainstream media would never talk about it, and that's their only source of information.
I think the most egregious thing about the whole scenario was the fact that they had to demonize any sort of treatment, like any sort of treatment, in order to get the emergency measures to go through. Because the prerequisite for the emergency measures was that there could be no valid treatment that could, be used for this particular ailment. So instead of just acknowledging that there was, but maybe bringing up an amendment or trying to pass a rule where they could have their emergency measure regardless or anything like that, no, they just went in and said, oh, all these things that, doctors have faith in, possibly, that could possibly be useful. No, we're just going to demonize that. And we got to a point where, a colleague of mine, I was just mentioning in passing, I saw this thing on Joe Rogan, and she was like, oh yeah, that's the guy who took Horsepaste, right? I'm like, you're a smart person. Oh my God, the propaganda got to you. Like you're otherwise a really intelligent person, but the propaganda is that strong that it actually got through to people because they're just not paying attention, right? Like I gotta deal with my normal life, and this is what I'm being told by what's supposed to be a reputable source, and it's a lie. It's a outright lie.
And I've come across that Horsepaste bullshit as well. But that Horsepaste won the Nobel Prize, and it's one of the most widely used horse pastes for humans over the last 35 years.
I got caught up. I got caught up in some of the BS myself, and I had to apologize to my audience because there was a study out of Brazil that stated that the Horsepaste wasn't actually that good. And I was like, hey, okay, well, this is news and it's pertinent to what I normally cover. Here's the data, and sorry to all the people that thought it was a good miracle thing, right? But here's the data. Well, I got bombarded. Well, you didn't check, Clyde. You didn't double check. You didn't look into this enough, and sure enough, I got duped, right? So even people who are paying attention can get duped. It turns out that particular study, the people who were involved in the study, they were all already on the Horsepaste as just like a normal thing for parasites in that country out of Brazil. And so they were all on the paste for the parasites. And then they did this study, which is, I mean, you can't do a study on people that are already all taking the thing that you're studying. So double blinds out the window. The placebo group would be out the window in that study. So it was all bunk. It was bogus, and it was just to fit a narrative. But it got me even, so what do we do? What do we do when we're all getting duped by this stuff?
Yeah. And I will mention to your audience, the reason we're calling it Horsepaste because it's in the COVID-19 misinformation policy. You can't even say the word.
Yeah, I just stay away from it. It's paste.
No, I know, but it's literally, it's there. You can't say the word. It's that, and the censorship is so strong. It's so strong, and people don't realize because they don't run YouTube channels, and I see it so obvious. Just read the policy. And it's just like with the V's that it's safe for pregnant women. So how many pregnant women do you have a study with? Like, would a pregnant woman even sign up for this study? How do you find a pregnant woman to sign up for a study? It's ridiculous.
Well, I read the documents, so I mean the answer's in there, and I'm not going to say it out loud, but the answers are in there. But yeah,
Yeah.
I'll leave that to doctors to scrutinize
Yeah.
and discuss. But yeah,
Well, let's move on.
yeah,
Let's
well,
move on
yeah.
then.
So we come to a situation where, people have a faith in a thing and other people don't have a faith in a thing, and that's fine. That's absolutely fine. We live in a free, open, democratic society. That should just be fine. And you should just be able to go, I'm happy for you in the faith that you have in these things, and you should be happy for me. I can do whatever I want. But no, that became a different thing. It became an issue, terms of your employment for some people. It became the
Yeah,
ability
coercion.
the ability to travel. It became a wedge issue between people and their families, and that's where things really got ugly. And politicians like Trudeau really using this one to, and we all know politicians love to wedge themselves between voters, but they wedge themselves between family members. And this is where it gets really egregious and gross. And it's a really big stain in Canadian history. And people will never
Yeah.
forgive this, right?
The segregation is so strong and so powerful. It's really sad. It's one of the, it's so terrible. And I've experienced it with very good friends that will never talk to you again, and certain family members, etc. And you make new friends as well based on the segregation. But so continuing on with the timeline, it's like now I told you I lost my Facebook channel. I had a YouTube channel. I started to pump out information on YouTube, and I'm losing all my motorcycle subscribers. People like Marcel. I'm here for motorcycle racing. I'm not here for politics.
Oh, no. That's a
Yeah,
big
and my
shift.
answer what and so my reply was, it's like, this is more important than motorcycle racing. This is and then I have a guy comment and he's like, well, I'm unsubscribing. And then a guy would say, I just filled your position, don't worry.
Okay. So you cycled out an old audience and moved in a new audience. I'm sure there was a lot of people
Yeah.
that did stick around through the whole thing.
Hmm. And so my YouTube channel in January I started doing all these rallies and doing filming and documenting all the protests. I have the channel to do it. I had the ability to, as a documentary filmmaker. And then as January goes through, the Freedom Convoy was starting at the very end of January. The week before the Freedom Convoy started, it was called the Worldwide Rally. And there was one I documented in Kelowna. So it would have been like January 23rd. And this is when my YouTube channel really started to go, up to like 1 million views in a day, as an example. I mean, 1 million in a day, like, motorcycle racing, you hope for 100,000 views on a video. That would be awesome, let alone a day, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And so then the next next Saturday rally was January 29th. And so I'm going to go, and now the Freedom Convoy's hitting all the news. Everybody's talking about it, how there's building up momentum, and they're starting to drive from the west to the east. So then in Kelowna, boom, Saturday, hugest crowd I've ever seen. I mean, so much joy, so much happiness. And I have films throughout the day. There was 5 films throughout the day that are 20-minute segments. And just everybody is ecstatic. I literally, it was like the best day of my life. Thousands of people in Kelowna, a small little city, Kelowna, and thousands of people were there. The street was full of cars honking with signs and their flags. And the whole downtown of Kelowna was a blockade of vehicles just slowly moving at 1 kilometer an hour, or stopped. And it was just, I was like, finally, people are paying attention. I've been pushing this since the summer, and now it's January, and finally people are paying attention. Like, I literally thought we were doomed before this. And, slowly going to the reset, right? And then so the day was over. The rally starts to dwindle out at 5 o'clock. And I have my camper, which I was filming from the window because it was cold out. I'd go in the camper, warm up, film from the window, go outside and document and interview people. And then I was on the phone making a pizza at around 8 p.m. I get a knock on my door. It was actually like 8:06 p.m. exactly. There was a knock on my door. I opened the door. There's a police officer with 2 security commissionaires behind him. And he says, "Can I have your ID?" And I say, "I don't have to give you that." And he says, "In that case, I'll be towing your car." And I shut the door, locked the door, and thinking that things could go worse for me if I didn't speak to him. So under duress, I opened the window to speak to him, thinking things will go worse if I don't, right? And then that's where the video started, at the door to the window with Constable Conrad Herbs.
Wait, so
And
your first interaction with him was just, I don't gotta speak to you?
his first words were, I want your ID, or I need your ID. And I'm like, I don't have to do that. I don't have to give you ID.
Oh,
And he
okay.
said, in that case, I'll be towing your car. And then I shut the door, and then I opened the window and talked to him through the window.
Pretty confrontational right off the get go. That's the
Yeah.
the gist of it. So what happens with the window conversation?
So he's like, okay, I asked you for your identification, and I want you to come outside and speak to me in the sidewalk, not through the window. And I'm like, no, it's cold out there. I'll speak to you through the window, and I don't have to give you ID. But so who are you? What is your name and badge number? And he's like, I will give you that when you come outside and meet me on the sidewalk. And I'm like, what's your name and badge number? You're not complying with me, so I'm not complying with you. What's your badge number? What's your name? What's your name? I ask him over and over. And he starts threatening me. It's like, if you don't come outside, I'm going to give you a ticket for your front plate. I'm going to give you a ticket for no red flag. I'm going to tow your vehicle. And then, that's the first 7-minute video. And then he goes to his vehicle. And at this point, I've never seen his police car because he parked it down the road. He has no badge. He has no name on his vest. He would not identify himself as a police officer with a name or even, and I'm like, he could be an impersonating police officer. And we all know what happened in Nova Scotia. He could be an Antifa at the time. That was big news as well.
Well, okay, so yeah, let's talk about that, because in Nova Scotia there was that massive amount of shootings by the one guy who was impersonating a police officer. It was a real big tragedy in Canadian history, and yeah, that's definitely noteworthy. And then the idea that Antifa was showing up to these protests and egging people on, or
yeah, essentially Antifa would be the opposite of the Freedom Convoy or the Freedom. They would dress, in fatigues like police officers, and they would essentially cause a disturbance.
Right.
And then we could go to this is January 6th, of course, in the States. That news was still big as well. There's always instigators in situations like this. So it was just a thought.
So you were watching out for your safety in the situation here. So what's the normal protocol? Like, I don't know what the normal protocol for a police officer is when confronting a vehicle that's parked on the road that may have an occupant in it. I'm guessing that's what the idea was. You had an RV, right? You had an RV with your bike attached to it, and whatever. You didn't have a front plate on it, or I'm just guessing by what you said here. So like maybe you didn't have a red flag on it, and you didn't have a front plate. But what would the normal protocol for a police officer in that situation be, as opposed to what he did? I mean, like, obviously, I don't have to talk to you. You come out and talk to me. It doesn't seem very diplomatic.
Yeah,
especially
being a bully. I mean, that's what he's doing. He's soldiering. Instead of being a peace officer to protect and serve, he is soldiering, right? And essentially, if anybody doesn't listen to him, he can't believe his person is not listening to him, and he double downs on his authority based on lies. So, and a police officer in the Police Act, they must identify themselves as an RCMP, and they must identify their name, right, or their badge number. And so this is part of their code of conduct, and this is for the safety of everybody. And if you go into rcmp.com and just type in officer identification, it'll explain it right there. In fact, it takes it even further, is don't just ask for their name. It's like, I'd like to see your ID card, because back to Nova Scotia, you could have a fake suit. I want to see your ID card. And then you look at the ID card and then call the police. There's a 1-800 number, or call your local dispatch or 911 and verify that that person on the card is an actual police officer. So this is what I recommend everybody learns to do. And it would have helped me in that situation a little bit if I actually got his.
I've never run into a situation like that. I mean, I've been stopped by the police, a number of times, just, traffic stop, that kind of thing. You always just kind of, they assume that's a cop. I never had to, fear for my safety in any of those situations. I did get stopped by a cop that was unreasonable once in Whistler.
Yeah.
because I used to live in Whistler, and I had my skateboard. There's a rule you can't skateboard in the village on the cobblestone. I don't know why, but
Okay.
whatever. Middle of the night, everybody does anyway. In fact, a kid sued the Whistler police at one point because they tased him. He had his headphones on. He was skateboarding home from his subway shift at like 3 in the
Shit.
morning, and they tased him. He fell over and bonked his head. He turned out okay, but he got like $1 million out of the thing. But at one point, a cop stopped me and he says, "Hey, you, come over here." So I picked up my skateboard and I walked over to him, and then he grabbed me. And I said, "Why are you grabbing me?" He said, "It looked like you were going to run." I said, "Dude, I walked to you from 20 feet away. I'm not going anywhere." And then he let go of me. And then, he issued me a ticket. It was lame. Anyway, let's get back to your story.
Yeah. Well,
Like the
on that,
protocol.
is that person
Sorry.
like they're actually supposed to de-escalate. So there's de-escalation training that they have. In terms of your case, it doesn't sound like a de-escalation. And
No,
is
it
that
didn't feel
actually
that way.
a police office? Are these actual police officers under, like, there's Vancouver Police, there's RCMP. Is this even a police officer you're even talking about?
Yeah, this is RCMP. So that's
Oh,
his
okay.
jurisdiction there.
Oh,
But yeah.
in Whistler. Gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but like, what kind of protocol do they have? So I'm trying to figure out, because like I always try to devil's advocate any situation. Like, okay, am I being unreasonable? Is this kind of a situation where maybe I escalated things and maybe I pushed them into the situation? What would his like protocol be for approaching a vehicle? What was the complaint in the first place? Why did he knock on your RV?
Very. And that, to this day, I do not have an answer to that. So he double talked his way around. I'm like, "What's the complaint? Why are you knocking on my door?" And even later on, I actually called the police on the police because he didn't identify himself and he wouldn't give me a reason. And so I called dispatch and say, "There's an unidentified guy dressed as a police officer. He won't identify." And then that's how I got his name, was from the car number. Eventually, he parked his car up next to mine across the street. And I gave him the card number, and he's like, "Oh, that's Herbs, Constable Herbs." So this was after like 25 minutes of where I was detained in the RV for fear that he is going to do something unjust if I get out of the RV, and what his actions have already done by not identifying himself, not following protocols. So essentially, this is how I believe it would happen. And because I've been to court now twice, and in the last court, Constable Conrad Herbs testified as a witness, and then the Crown asked him questions. They led him into questions talking about the Freedom Convoy, actually, because I didn't bring that up. These are traffic tickets. I didn't think that was appropriate to get into the why I was there, but they brought it up, so that'll be for the next court date. But and essentially, he redacted in his synopsis, when you ask for full disclosure or particulars from the officer for traffic court or criminal, they have to disclose all the evidence that they're going to bring up, because the onus is on them to prove that you did this. I don't have to testify as an example. The onus is on them to prove. And he redacted the witness that said, "There's a detailed security report that I've been causing a disturbance all day from a commissionaire." Redacted. They redacted the witness that he's having, that's saying there's CCTV video footage of me causing a disturbance, but there's no CCTV video footage in disclosure. So he never gave me disclosure.
Wouldn't he
except
ask
this
you that
synopsis.
though? Wouldn't the protocol then be to ask you that while approaching you? Are you XYZ gentleman that was causing a disturbance? Like,
Yeah, so let me get to that. So what happened was
maybe I don't know. I don't know any of the
yeah,
details of it. So I'm trying.
yeah.
So, but here. Okay, take this in for example. YouTube is full of videos of people that are belligerent with cops, right? So like some people might say, "Oh, was Marcel Irnie being belligerent with this cop, and then this is what caused the whole thing? Was he being like?" Because you've seen the videos, right, where people are like, "I don't fall under this jurisdiction. I'm under maritime law, and the government's a corporation or something like that." And
Well, you're talking about people trying to practice common law, but what's really on YouTube is police audits. There's Audit the Audit. There's tons of We the People. And some people actually go in front of like a prison and they'll film with a camera until a prison person comes out and says, "Hey, what are you doing here?" And he's like, "I'm exercising my rights. I'm filming a story. I'm a journalist, etc." And then they call the police, and then the cops show up. So this is what's all over YouTube, is these are audit shows. And essentially, they're exercising their rights of their constitution in the States. to be able to film on a public sidewalk. It doesn't matter if you're in front of a prison or not. You're not on the private grounds. And then the cop will show up and say, hey, you got to give me your ID. And I say, you don't have reasonable articulable suspicion that I've caused the crime, that I've committed a crime, so you have no reason to ask for my ID. And so it's in the Constitution. And eventually, well, they just keep hassling the guy, detaining him. Am I being detained? And then I want to speak to your sergeant. And then the sergeant comes, and essentially the constable or whatever, he's like, okay, and then they leave because they can't ask for your ID.
It sounds like a hell of a hassle
citizen.
and a risk of getting punched out to me. That really does.
Yeah, I'm just giving examples. This is not what I do. I didn't call the police.
Right.
So after the Freedom Convoy, which I documented,
Right.
I was in my RV making pizza, talking on the phone about how great the day was before going home. And I'm getting a knock at the door. So the commissionaires, there's security, that's a private company hired by the city.
Right.
They called dispatch. This is what the synopsis says, that, and this is what he testified to, is Herbs, is dispatch called, the commissioners called dispatch saying they wanted somebody to help them tell somebody, that he's overstayed parking. And because for some reason, the commissioner, who's a security, didn't want to go and knock on the door himself. And he said this on film because it's like, I don't like dealing with people. I don't like dealing with confrontation. So obviously, he's
probably wrong line of business for that guy. I'd say.
Yeah. So yeah, but this you have to realize that this is all during the Freedom Convoy too, and the city does not like this every Saturday. And I won't get into too much detail about it, but
so it
really,
might be politically
I was
motivated.
Politically targeted because my channel was in millions of views. I'm the person sharing this rally every weekend, and everybody's seen it. Everybody knows who I am. I'm literally one of the most known people in my city because of all this.
Right. So no strangers involved here.
Yeah, especially the Freedom, all the grandmas. Mostly people who are paying attention to Freedom Convoy, by the way, are over 50 years old. The majority of my analytics are between 55 and 65, and I'm talking 33% of my YouTube channel is 55 to 65. Then 23% is 65 to 75, and then the other 23% is 55 to 45. Really, nobody's paying attention in their 20s at all.
Which is sad.
The Constitution and the Charter of Rights and Freedoms and the Freedom Convoy. So at the rallies, it's mostly Freedom grandmas, as an example, right? The people that know.
Grannies.
Yeah. So he's knocking at the door on a complaint on the commissioner saying, hey, I want somebody to attend with me. And I just want to tell this guy, if you're still here at 6 a.m., it's a bylaw ticket. And so I was legally parked. I'm allowed to be there. I was exercising my charter rights in section 2 of the charter, to the freedom to assembly and the freedom to associate. And here I'm having a guy, asking for my ID, threatening me tickets and threatening to tow, and essentially threatening, coercion to get out of the RV. And I can tell you, he would have arrested me if I went out of that RV. He would have done worse. I might have got a freaking boot in the face for all I know, and arrested and caused, said I was resisting arrest. And I can tell you why. And when I released the videos, there was always a ton of comments is like, why don't you just get out of the RV and move? Like, why are you causing this whole video drama? Why don't you just get and move your car? It's that simple. There's a lot of comments like that. And I can tell you, in his synopsis, he stated that I was causing a disturbance all day. And he said, the individual was not arrested because he was in the RV. That's a quote from Herb's synopsis. And in court, he said that he was investigating me for criminal. He was a criminal investigation on me. Here I am in my RV making pizza, documenting the Freedom Convoy. So you can see how I was targeted. And what they do is they target you to silence you, to scare me away from doing my job of documenting the Freedom Convoy and exercising my right to assembly, because every week they're trying to make these protests illegal right now. They're actually going in court saying, we want to make it illegal that you guys can't assemble right here in front of City Hall in Kelowna.
Yeah, that's a real thing. I would imagine if you just decided, oh, okay, forget it, I'll just drive away. Well, he'd just pull you over for something that's under the Motor Vehicle Act. I mean, you kind of, I kind of see it that you're a little damned if you do, damned if you don't in that situation. Mm-hmm. You're afraid for your safety because you don't know what might occur if you did get out. And the guy won't have to identify himself. I mean, that's kind of
it was very scary. It was very scary. I was intimidated, I was threatened, and I was detained for 3 hours over a parking warning. Again, that's all it was, is like, I just want you to know that you can't camp here overnight. People park downtown all the time, and they go to the bars, they go to the pubs. You can leave your vehicle downtown overnight, take a cab home, come and get your vehicle in the morning. This was 8 o'clock at night. And then they also, they got together with bylaw, and bylaw was in on it as well as the commissioners and herbs, and they were all working together to threaten and intimidate me. And like I said, if I got out of that RV, whether I was arrested, which he said he would in his synopsis, but if I wasn't, I get in the vehicle. Now he's giving me tickets under the Motor Vehicle Act and Motor Vehicle Act regulations. If I'm not, I'm just a citizen in the camper or a citizen on the sidewalk. The vehicle is locked. There is nobody in the motor vehicle. And there's definitions under the Motor Vehicle Act. Motor vehicle, there is the owner, there is a camper. So a camper is a structure on top of a motor vehicle. So I was in the camper. So it's no different than being on a sidewalk. You can't ask somebody on the sidewalk as a cop, I need to see your ID. It's like, unless they have reasonable, articulable suspicion that you've committed a crime, they cannot ask you for your ID.
Isn't that what makes it legal? Isn't that what makes it legal to have drinks in your RV? Is because that the enclosure is not considered the motor vehicle. So like you could never have drinks in a motor vehicle, no matter what the case.
Exactly.
No matter if there's no engine in the damn thing. If there's a motor vehicle and a cop finds you in it with alcohol, you're in deep doo-doo. Like that's for sure.
And this is the funny thing, is I don't have a motorhome. I have a camper, which is a structure on top of a motor vehicle. There's no way to get into my cab, right?
Oh, okay. So you can't even do it. Yeah, fair enough.
No. So if I was in a motorhome with the vehicle is all one, it's a different classification. There's actually a term motorhome. So I didn't buy a truck camper knowing this, but ironically, it actually helps me out a lot. And this is reason not to have a van. You know, the van life, it's way better to have a structure to protect yourself for drinking, smoking weed, etc. Right? You know, as they put it, it's a separate structure, and I can have drinks in there all I want and be parked right on the beach or right on the boardwalk, right?
Yeah, that's you know, it's so funny because like I lived in Japan for a while. I lived there for like 3 years. I visit there all the time, and they have different alcohol laws. And I know I'm kind of going away from the story here a bit, but I always thought it was stupid that you can't drink outside in Canada. Like we have such a beautiful country, and everybody goes camping and stuff. You can drink at camp, but you can't go to the park and have a beer with your friends. Like clean up after yourself.
Well, you can now, though, in Penticton and in Kelowna, I believe. But Penticton did this during COVID. All of a sudden, drinking's allowed on the beach because the bars were shut down.
Yes, yeah. So they did make that. But my whole life, though, up until then, it was like you can't drink outside. I mean, beautiful sunset. You're like, I just want to have a glass of wine with my wife. You know, nope, can't do it. You get in trouble. But like in Japan, you can drink anywhere except behind the wheel of a car. You can drink in the passenger seat of a car. Like you could be in the back of the car and have a beer. I've been in taxis and had a beer.
It's like Vegas.
Yeah, it's like I guess Vegas is like that. I mean, it makes sense. Like, yeah, don't operate cars, don't operate machinery while drinking alcohol. But like this going overboard with being strict, it just doesn't seem legitimate. Anyway, going back to your story.
Okay, yeah. So I'll keep going. So essentially, I'm being detained, and I called the police at 8:35 p.m. or somewhere around there.
So you say essentially you got detained. Did at any time the officer say you were being detained?
No, they never said I was being detained, but
never said you were free to go.
Well, no, either way. No, he's like, come out here and move your car. He's trying to goad me into coming outside so he can do his unjust things that he's been planning to do to me and give me all these tickets and cause me harm. That's what I felt like. And so if you look up the definition of detained, I can't, for my safety, I can't leave, right? I can't just leave. So it's the same thing under the definition of being detained.
Okay.
And so I called the police, and then, but it took an hour and a half. Corporal Hall, his supervisor, the watch commander, didn't show up until 10:30. So 8 o'clock, 8:06 it started, an hour and 45 minutes where 4 security, 2 bylaw, herbs are freaking knocking on all the windows. A tow truck shows up, hooks up to my front wheels. I'm in the camper. tow truck driver is not very smart. He's literally not even allowed to tow the vehicle with my dirt bike on the back, because the dirt bike sticks out, the carrier sticks out very far, and you tilt it up just a foot, it would drag the dirt bike carrier on the ground. And any tow truck driver knows that they're not allowed to tow an unsafe load.
Or
so
with a
this
person
Dave
in
Jarman, oh, of course, and they're not allowed to tow the person in it. But I'm just saying, even so,
Right.
and then the tow truck hooks up, and he's like, Herbs comes back to the window with his face mask. Keep in mind, he only has his eyes. He's got it over his nose. He's wearing a full like bandana across his face, like style, and then a toque. And he's like, the tow truck's ready now. We need you to get out for your safety. And I'm like, I didn't get out an hour and a half ago. I'm not going to get out now. Jesus, like, it's so ridiculous the way he goes about it. Not very smart. And so then eventually the watch commander does show up. And I give him a quick synopsis, and he de-escalates the situation. He becomes an intermediary between us as we talk.
Okay.
And he's there, and then Herbs asks me the question again. He's like, "Can I have your ID?" It starts all over again, and I'm like, "No, I'm in a camper. I'm not in the motor vehicle. You have no reasonable, articulable suspicion that I've committed a crime or any reasonable ability that I'm in the camper." If you're in a motor vehicle, they can ask you for ID, right? But if you're not in the streets or the camper, they can't. And we go back and forth. And then I'm like, "So what's the complaint?" And he's like, "I've already told you." And I'm like, "No, you haven't. What's the complaint? Why do you knock on my door?" And then Corporal Hall is like, he's entitled to know. So the cops, trying to get this de-escalated. And he's like, "We're going in circles. I've already told you." So double talk. So just like Trudeau and Freeland, they just double talk and will never answer the question, right? And essentially, eventually Hall gets Herbs to leave. And then he's like, "Well, now the problem is the tow truck. The tow truck, he's been here for an hour and a half hooked up to you, and now the bill is $350.
That's not your
right?
fault.
And that's what I'm like. I'm like, this is not my problem. I didn't call the tow truck. I told the tow truck, you can't hook up and tow this. I'm being targeted by these guys. And so the tow truck guy says, "You owe me $350, or I'm going to take possession of your motor vehicle, and I'm going to have the police deal with you because you're not paying me." And I'm like, this is ridiculous. This is not appropriate. And then the tow truck driver walks away, or Corporal Hall comes back. And I'm like, this is not appropriate. I didn't call the police. Herbs did. You need to figure this out. And then Hall goes and talks to the tow truck driver for another 10 minutes. And then he comes back. Hall has tears in his eyes. He is empathetic. And he felt the scenario, and his eyes were watering. I was blown away. And the tow truck guy is going to unhook, and then you can be on your way. So it was really an amazing ending. And then the tow truck's gone, and I get out.
What time of day would you say this was?
So Herbs knocked on the door at 8:06 p.m. Right? The Freedom Convoy was the rally was going to like 6 p.m. and then I was there for 2 more hours making food on the phone. And now it's 11 p.m. is when I walk out of the vehicle, out of the camper. I walked out at 11 p.m. 3 hours.
Like I'm not the biggest fan of tow truck drivers, but I do have empathy for people, and like getting called out because of a situation that doesn't seem necessary, and then having to go home empty-handed really sucks. It really sucks. But it's not your fault.
What you don't know is no. You don't understand. The RCMP has a contract with Mario's Towing. This is not just any tow truck. In Kelowna, Mario's Towing is the biggest conglomerate of towing. It's a corrupt towing business, and they they work with the RCMP. So they do every RCMP call, and essentially, they're crooks together. That's how they work in conjunction.
Oh, okay. So yeah, it's not the scenario that I was thinking. I was thinking poor guy, he's out with his family, he's out there in the cold, instead of sitting around the house with watching a movie with the kids, something like that. And
they work together. They work together to do their intimidation factors and to run their judicial bullshit, essentially. And then on the synopsis from Herbs, it said in the synopsis that Hall got the tow truck to leave and the RCMP paid the towing bill.
So the taxpayer, you mean? Yeah, that sucks. Oh, that's
Isn't
that's
that crazy?
Shame.
You probably never heard of an RCMP paying for a towing bill ever, or you'd never hear about it. And that shows the fault. That shows who's at fault here.
Yeah, well, it feels like almost an admission of fault at that point. So
Hmm.
where does it go from there? How do we end up in litigation with the civil court system?
Okay, so when I was in the camper for my safety, I posted the first two videos, like first two interactions with Herbs. I posted them instantly on my YouTube channel because I was afraid that maybe he'll break in the door and steal my phone and steal my evidence, right? So I ran those two
Oh,
videos right off the bat.
right up to the cloud. See you later. They're gone. Yeah, you can't get them.
Right onto YouTube, right onto YouTube,
All
right onto
right.
YouTube. No description, nothing. You know, the title is like, I don't remember, help. And then the next day I put in part 3 and then part 4 and part 5 because it's 3 hours of video footage. And then I started editing the videos and I went and got the information about the Motor Vehicle Acts and the bylaw, you know, and so I called up bylaw because they gave me a bylaw ticket for overnight abode. And it's literally for somebody who's setting up a tent, a campsite on the side of a highway for months. And these people exist. I see them on the side of the highway all the time. They'll have an RV there every single day, but nobody bugs them because it's in some dirt in the middle of a highway, right? Not near a city between, say, the South Okanagan and North Okanagan. So that's overnight abode. I call up bylaw, talk to Sergeant Scott, and it was already in collections because they said it after 15 days, you have to dispute a bylaw ticket. He's like, we pull it back from collections. We voided the ticket because it's a fraudulent ticket from bylaw. Again, they're working in
They did
conjunction
that.
with the RCMP. They did that as well. Yeah. And they voided the ticket. So again, it proves that I was allowed to be parked there.
Oh wow. Because I know what they're doing there. So, in the town that I live in, we get a lot of people that they come in. They don't want to pay the rents that are crazy high here, so they'll just live in RVs and stuff. And people in the town got fed up with it because the local rec center jammed full of people using the showers and all this stuff, and people not paying any municipal taxes but using all the
Mm-hmm.
amenities that are paid for by taxes. So they started really cracking down on RVers that are just you know hitching a free ride.
Which is, but also you can look at it the other perspective. We have Trudeau inflation off the yang, billions of dollars of money inflating our costs. Rent in Kelowna is ridiculous. Like to get a 1-bedroom place is $2,000 a month, like a 1-bedroom apartment.
Yeah.
People can't afford this. So more people than ever actually are not able to afford rent, or now the mortgages are going up, but this is before that. And there was only 1% availability for rent in Kelowna as well. So it's literally impossible to find a place. Now the landlords are like choosing, everybody has to write them a resume to apply. And so more people than ever are forced to live in their vehicles or on
Yeah.
the street. And I mean, just look at the homeless, look at Tent City, and even in Kelowna, in Vancouver, Portland is out of control. California is out of control. People are suffering.
Well, in Vancouver, Tent City, that's a completely different story. Those are either people with mental illness or substance abuse issues. Like that's real bad. But like a lot of people who move into like the Whistler area, that kind of thing, they're there for the lifestyle, but they can't afford
Mm-hmm.
the rents, and it's really unfortunate that people can't afford the rents. But they're stuck in a situation where they don't have much of a choice, but it creates a situation for the people who do foot the bill and pay all the municipal taxes. Instead of finding like a middle ground and say, okay, well, here's a lot, pay lot fees or whatever, the municipality just decided, nope, we're just going to kick them all out. And that's
On,
I mean, it's a short run solution to a
yeah.
more of a long term problem, but that's
What's
the
really interesting on this same subject, in Wenatchee, just south of us over the border in Wenatchee in Washington, there's a lot of people living in RVs, and they made a law saying you guys can't be parked in city streets with your RVs. But what they did is then they went and leased a big parking area, a big parking lot from a private person who owned the lot. The city leases it, and now all the people in the RVs have a place to go park their RVs. And so the city gives them a place to do it. And so now you don't park on the streets, you have a lot. So it's actually quite an interesting idea, and
it's a
it's been
way
very
better way of
successful
doing
in
it.
Wenatchee.
Yeah, it's a way better way
Yeah,
of
yeah,
doing it than just straight up saying no and we're going to ticket you and kick you out. Like
yeah,
actually give people an
yeah,
option. And I'm sure a
yeah,
lot of these people wouldn't mind paying a lot fee, like not an exorbitant one, but like a lot fee, just so they can do it
yeah,
legally.
sure.
Yeah, and then it can
Yeah, and have water and have power.
and
Yeah,
contribute to the
exactly.
community. I mean, they just don't have any other choice, and that's kind of where it gets to. And people will call them freeloaders, but I mean, it's not really if they had the choice.
Well,
But so
yeah.
anyway, we keep
So back to it.
veering around, but it's fine.
Yeah.
Where were we?
Okay, so essentially, of course, I was just there for the Freedom Convoy, right? I actually was renting a place at the same time,
Right.
but we definitely veered onto another road. And so I posted all the video footage and I started to show the truth. Now, the first 3 videos went really viral, and, 150,000, 200, 300,000. And this is like local in Kelowna. So then all of a sudden, Castanet Media, which is a mainstream media in Kelowna, who is paid by the government is giving all the mainstream media's $10,000 grants times multiple times, or also paying them directly. So this is Castanet. They did a story on my videos about Conrad Herbs and me, and it's on Castanet, and the title is "YouTuber Instigates Police for Views" or something like that. So they smeared me. They did a smear story. I don't know if I sent it to you, but you might have looked at it. And essentially, they reached out to the RCMP top brass, the captain at the time,
Mm-hmm.
and he made a statement saying, "We fully support our officer and what he did, and this individual was just looking to cause problems to instigate views for his YouTube channel." And I just laugh at that. It's because, like, oh, ring, 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 RCMP, could you please send me down somebody like Herbs, because I'm trying to make a documentary about police harassment. Thank you very much. No, that did not happen at all. They're acting like I instigated it, but I didn't knock on their door. He knocked on my door and didn't give his ID, as I explained, and caused this whole ruckus, going against the code of conduct and fabricating evidence. So again, it's police, it's neglect of duty. These are actual terms: oppressive conduct and improper attitude. And I have a CRCC complaint against Conrad Herbs that I filed on January 23rd, and the RCMP, or the CRCC, which is the Civilian Review and Complaint Commission, approved my complaint and passed it on to the RCMP to assign an investigator on February 22nd. Oh, my earpiece is falling out. Okay, I'm back. Okay, and we were talking. Oh yeah, I was uploading the videos to YouTube. Okay, you ready to go?
Yeah, go for it. But we're back, and sorry for the a little bit of a technical difficulty there with the earbuds, but we're good now. So yeah, so you were uploading the YouTube video, and where did that go from there?
Yeah, so I was essentially explaining, I was putting my evidence online because this is the way to defend myself. And then, of course, Castanet did the smear piece saying that I instigated this police for YouTube views.
Right.
And I don't know if you know about, if it's ironic part is, even if my YouTube's channels were monetized at the time, when you upload police interactions, they don't like to monetize those as well.
No, there's a disincentive to even monetize that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah, they just don't approve it. And you go through the 7-day process for a manual review, and then they're like, no, because there was an argument with the cops. But anyways, a little off subject. So they did the smear piece, and then all of a sudden, it's the Barbra Streisand effect. It just makes it bigger, right? Mm-hmm. Any publicity is good publicity, even though it's terrible, bad publicity. And it's just like, with the COVID-19 narrative and how nobody's paying attention. It's the same thing. People will read something on mainstream media and they just absolutely don't even have any critical thinking skills, we can call it. Mm-hmm. They read a story and it says we support the RCMP 100%. This guy was instigating the police. And yet the news story didn't even contact me. It's a story about me. It's my story. And they didn't even contact me for comment. And as you probably have read about journalism ethics, they must take every attempt to contact you and to reach out for comment. And if they can't reach you, they actually will write, he was unable to be reached for comment, or he said no comment, or he commented, right?
My favorite tactic for that is to call you up at like 5 o'clock in the afternoon and send you an email at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and then publish the article first thing in the morning. And you're like, oh, we reached out to him, but he was not available for comment.
Yeah. So ironically, again, people read this smear story, and then all of a sudden there's a forum on Castanet as well. They have their own forum that I can read. They have a Facebook where they post it. All of a sudden there's a Facebook comments, and I can read these. And there's so many people that aren't critical thinkers, and they like, I don't even want to watch the video because they put the video in the thing, like the first part one of the police interaction with Herbs, and people are like, oh, I don't want to click on that because it's going to help him, I'll have to watch the video. But they're commenting on this, like a specific of it without even watching the evidence themselves. It's hilarious. And I got a lot of hate for that. I had people like, messaging me on Instagram, it's like, oh, you're an asshole. You should die. I hope you get hit by a car. You get all the hate spam, right?
Mm-hmm.
I had people contacting my AMSOIL synthetics business. I've been an AMSOIL dealer since I started racing motorcycles, and I started researching the mistruths of the oil industry. What is synthetic? What is mineral oil, etc. That's a whole nother story.
Yeah.
Again, all these industries are absolutely liars, and that's what's going on. And so people had contacted AMSOIL corporate in Wisconsin, and I'm getting a call from Wisconsin saying we've got some complaints from people, and I have to investigate, right? So people are trying to affect my life negatively based on that smear piece. And so I actually made my own story talking about Castanet smearing me. I made a video specifically about that and how their journalism ethics, and the guy who wrote the story, Rod Gibson, etc. And this is just mainstream media. This is right with the Freedom Convoy. And then all of this is going on, the Freedom Convoy is continuing to happen, right? And things are just getting bigger, and people actually start to see what the police did when they're in Ottawa. And we have these green goblins out there, these police with no name tags, right, against all the protesters. And everybody's like, well, who are these people? So the same subject.
I did see that that people were posting that they didn't have badge numbers, and what people didn't realize is the numbers that were on their helmets were their badge numbers on those particular, the green uniforms.
Did they have numbers on their helmets?
Yeah,
I can't remember that fact.
Yeah, they did. And
okay,
because I remember getting that comment quite a lot when I was covering the Freedom Convoy, especially in those last days, and people saying they were like UN troops and there were a bunch of other stuff, but no, they were legitimate RCMP, and they were recruited from other regions.
I believe they're from Quebec.
Yeah,
I heard a lot of them brought in from Quebec.
But they had those riot uniforms where they would normally have a tearaway patch, but in riot scenarios, which was completely out of the element of the situation. Like, they didn't need all that
there's no
stuff.
riot going on.
but normally, because the patches would get ripped off, they have the numbers on their forehead or on their helmet. So that's a little factoid about that. But
there you go.
I had people who were police, helping me in the background to identify things and be able to report accurately on some of these issues that were going on at the time. So I contact them, like, what's with this, what's with that, and they said you could tell that they were RCMP by the batons they were using. He's like, those are issued RCMP batons. Like, oh, okay, so like laid a lot of myths to rest really quick.
Yeah,
with that.
You just reminded me about the WhatsApp conversation between the RCMP on the horses as well. What do they call them? The dancing RCMP. There's a special name for them. The regiment that rides the horses. They do like do you remember the WhatsApp conversation that was leaked?
I do. That was leaked. I think by Jeremy McKenzie and those guys. They somehow got a hold of that and leaked that to the press, and then Rebel News got it and put it out even further. And it was RCMP saying some pretty awful things about what was going on with
celebrating that woman getting trampled, celebrating horses trampling people, and I want to jackboot people in the face. Yeah. And it was leaked by an RCMP person in that thread, by the way.
That's right. Well, that's the only people who would know about that.
Axis. Yeah, whatever that brigade was called anyways, a little tangent. But so the video footage were on YouTube, and then I have to go to traffic court now. So first traffic court comes up with Herbs he gave me the ticket, refusal to provide driver's license, no red flag and no front plate on January 29th, right? He gave me that ticket with Hall there, kind of de-escalating the situation. So I go to traffic court. I am fully prepared, ready to learn and do battle essentially in there with the truth. And outside the courtroom, 5 minutes before court, Herbs comes in and he's like, "Hey, can I talk to you privately?" Because they often want to make you deals sometimes before going to court.
Is that appropriate?
No, this is what RCMP do is like, so if you disputing a ticket, you can dispute the ticket for the ticket amount or dispute the charges not guilty completely, and they can make deals with you. They'll see if you want to barter with them, drop one ticket, do another one, etc.
This seems wholly inappropriate. Like seriously,
yeah, this is what
like an RCMP agent like saying, "I'm gonna broker a deal between you and a fine that's owed to the state." Like that. Yeah. Okay.
yeah,
I think that seems inappropriate.
This is how the whole thing goes. I mean, he gave you the ticket in the first place. That's nothing compared to what actually goes on in the bureaucracy of the courtroom.
Yeah,
it's unbelievable.
Enough.
The more I learn, the whole system is completely rigged. But that's a whole story. So I walked down the hallway right outside the courtroom 5 minutes before court. He's like, "So how are you going to plea?" And I wasn't going to broker any deal. I was just going to hear him just for the joke of it, right? And I say, "Not guilty." And he says, "In that case, I'm issuing you additional tickets. You have been served." And I'm like, "I'm not taking their ticket." And he's like, and he rubs it on my shoulder and it falls to the ground, right? "You've been served." And I pick up the tickets, and with them is a legal sized piece of white paper. And on there it says ceased and desist and harassment. He gave me a cease and desist saying my YouTube videos need to come down, and every day that they're online, I owe him $1,000 Canadian per day that they're main online. So he gave me a threat, an intimidation and threat to, I was the witness and defendant right before traffic court. He threatens me.
Wait, was this a legal document that he was taking you to court, or like a summons to appear, or what? How does that work?
So anyone can write a cease and desist and give you this. On the back, it actually says registered, but he just typed it. This is registered. It wasn't registered stamped. There was no court filing number. No, it's a phony cease and desist, right? It's just a personal letter. It's a personal letter of threat.
You can't determine what damage is on a like a document. You can argue that with a court of law if you take somebody to court, of course, but you can't say like, "You owe me this if you don't do this." That's bribery, is it not?
It's certainly something crazy and ridiculous. And, so he just copy pasted from the internet. You can just see, all the wording saying, "Oh, him, his standing in the community, his image in the community, his family, everybody, it's all these problems are associated with the videos," right? And so he's claiming damages of $1,000 a day, and he's been affected in the community. And let me just lay it out for you for your audience that doesn't know. Everybody is allowed to film in public. If outside on a sidewalk is public, outside of City Hall on the steps is public. You can even film inside public buildings if there's no specific sign that says you can't film in there. So even in the courthouse,
public buildings, not private buildings.
Yes, public. The taxpayers own these buildings. You're allowed to film in public spaces.
Okay.
And you're allowed to film RCMP officers on duty in public spaces as well. And as you've seen on, all, like we talked about the audit videos, like this is you can film at the border as well. I filmed at the border. It's for everybody's protection and transparency. We all have dash cameras, there's security cameras in all the buildings we walk around in. We're all under surveillance. And we have the right to film police because the camera footage is the only thing that holds them accountable and keeps them accountable and keeps things transparent.
Well, I've heard this many times that like body cams that police officers wear. I mean, it's there for the public assurance, but it's also there to protect the officer too. I mean, because officers
everybody.
Yeah, they get accused of things that they didn't do, and if they're wearing their body cam, well, there's the evidence. And if the other officers nearby are wearing, the more footage of an event that happens, the better, right? The truth is more likely to come out in that situation.
Yeah, I mean, I made a video about this that was an hour and 10 minutes long, and I referenced two very important. We have Buddy Tavares in Kelowna was jackbooted in the face. He was like soccer kicked in the face by an RCMP officer. Falsely, it wasn't even him. Like the police pulled him over and he just thought he was getting out of the way. like he didn't know why they thought. And then, he draws a gun on him, get out of the vehicle, or I'm going to shoot you. And the guy gets out, get on the ground, and he bends over and he's on the ground. And as he's bent over on his knees, the cop does a running soccer kick in his face. And so this was filmed. Oh, this is falling out. Hold on, be careful.
Yeah, don't turn it off.
Yeah, there was a guy in a car that just happened to stop when the RCMP was right there with this guy being pulled over, and he was filming, and he filmed the guy getting booted in the face. I mean, literally, he almost lost his eye. His face was broken in, and the officer was then held accountable. He was suspended with pay for 30 days.
Oh, wow. He got a vacation.
And then he was transferred to a different area, and then he was docked 30 days pay after that, and he was never charged with assault.
So this doesn't ever lend good to the public opinion of police officers. And I here's the thing, like I do support police officers that are doing the right thing, like absolutely. Because
for sure,
because police need to be there. This whole concept of defund the police, like what a backwards concept. The Calgary mayor now really living that one up because of her support with the defund the police, and now there's a big
she flip flop.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's not gonna be too good for her in any upcoming elections, but yeah, this concept, but. This is the thing, like the police really need to work on their public image, like, and when an officer does something, steps out of their boundaries or doesn't follow protocol, they really need to show the public that they're willing to go after officers that do awful things. Like they really need to show that, or the public won't trust them, like at all. And yeah. And it really sucks because there are really good cops out there.
Yeah, they need to be held. People need to be held accountable. We need transparency.
Yes. Yeah.
And without accountability, I mean, and that's why I with the complaint with Conrad Herbs, hopefully this RCMP does an investigation and does a thorough one, and they call witnesses and they can actually put people under oath and do a full investigation. And then, they'll give me the result, and they're supposed to update me every month about what's going on. And I haven't had an update yet, which is concerning. And then if they make a decision that I approve of, then it's over. And if I disagree with it, then I ask the CRCC to do an independent investigation. They'll do a second investigation, independent. That's a process.
Hopefully it's independent because we've seen a lot of. I've investigated myself and found no wrongdoing.
Trudeau's Foundation and the Emergency Act and all these things. Yeah, this thing just won't stay in. So yeah, I'm getting a little off of the CRCC. So people should know about that, though, the Civilian Review and Complaint Commission. This is actually the process. And so the reason I learned about this is, you said you spoke with police officers before for knowledge for your show.
Absolutely.
Well, me as well, right? I had a lot of exposure. And so I had a sergeant from Alberta, a retired sergeant of 35 years. And so he's been helping me with this whole process.
Amazing. And, there are really good people out there that are concerned, again, for the safety of the public, for the safety of officers, because, if everything works in proper order, everybody is safe. And the bad guys on both sides of it will get what's coming to them. But
I mean, just think about the irony. You have a retired sergeant of 35 years. He's helping me because what he's watching with Herbs and in other scenarios, he's just outraged at and embarrassed at for the RCMP.
Yeah, absolutely. Because they should do better. Absolutely, they should do the right thing. Now, so you've gotten this cease and desist, or else.
Okay.
With the finger.
Yeah, let me continue.
The or else, rub it on your shoulder, and it's going to cost you $1,000 a day, which is a ridiculous claim. But So then where does it go? I mean, so like, is there any legal recourse to that?
So yeah, so he does this, and now it's like court time. I go in the courtroom and I wait around for 2 hours as they do a case in front of me, over Zoom call with a kid in Vancouver who was drifting a corner with a Subaru or something. And so I got to watch that unfold. And then all of a sudden I was there 1:30 time, and now it's almost 3 o'clock. And then it's like, okay, Marcel, your turn. And I get up and right off the bat, I say, it's like, he's like, are you Marcel Irnie? And I'm like, only for this court am I Marcel Irnie, because I have not been identified by Constable Herbs. And so he just knew it was going to be an interesting show right off the bat.
And no. You weren't being a headache on purpose, were you? Or are you just trying to be funny?
Well, no, this is actually a recommendation from the sergeant, because I've never been identified. I've never showed any of my ID, right?
Right?
And yeah. And so anyways, right off the bat, I explained, it's like, okay, yes, for purposes of this court, I am Marcel Irnie, but in terms of, I have never been identified, just to note that. And then he's like, well, it's 3 o'clock. We're out of time, and we're going to reschedule. And so rescheduled, and that was it. So I just wasted my day to go to court and, never get anywhere, actually get to present anything. And so the next court date is March 29th. And now I have this cease and desist piece of paper and another ticket. So I go downstairs and I file my dispute of the new traffic ticket that he just gave me on December 14th. And then now, before court date on March 29th, I call the violation ticket center to see if he has handed in his ticket on his side. So we're 3.5 months later. I want to see if he's actually filed that ticket, because they should be combined together. We shouldn't have two courts for one ticket and then another one he just gave me for the same violation date, same officer, right? We don't go to court twice. That's a waste of taxpayers' money, a waste of time. Mm-hmm. And the violation ticket center says, no, he hasn't turned it in. And I'm like, is there a time limit on it for him to file it with ICBC? And they say no. So he has this ticket that he issued me, but he hasn't filed it. So he's waiting for this court case to be done, I believe, before he then files it, and then we round two in court for the same exact ticket. And the new ticket is for failure to say name and address and rear plate obstructed. It's like literally almost identical to the first ticket, right? Refusal to provide driver's license, refuse to give my name and address.
Yeah.
Almost identical tickets.
It sounds malicious at this point. So like.
Absolutely. I'm targeted. Vindictive. He's being vindictive, and he's targeting me. He's abuse of the court's process is actually a term. Abuse of process. So anyways, so I go to court. I'm ready to go, and I got I've been working real hard and preparing for this, because I just want to destroy him in court. I have all the evidence on my side, right? His synopsis is redacted. He's saying that he wanted to arrest me. It's so ridiculous. And he has a complaint, but there is no complaint. He didn't give me any disclosure. So Herbs testifies, and I'm not going to give all the details away, but because I have court again, and then he presents evidence as well, photo evidence that wasn't in disclosure. And I'm like, your worship, because he's not an actual judge. He's worships. They're judicial justice. So it's a lawyer who becomes a judicial justice. Okay. They're not actual judges for traffic court in BC. And I'm like, I did not get full disclosure. I object. And essentially the worship wouldn't want to hear anything from me. He's like, he's literally shushing me in the courtroom. And then the Crown, who's there, is another cop. By the way, the Crown prosecutor is another RCMP in RCMP fatigues. It's absolutely ridiculous. And he then crosses Herbs after Herbs testifies, and leads him into like, what was going on that day? Was there a freedom convoy? Was there a so-called freedom convoy? Was there a lot of people there? So he's setting the stage. He's creating prejudice against me in front of the worship. And he's actually
the lawyer is, or the Crown prosecutor.
The Crown prosecutor police lawyer. Yes, exactly. he's bringing up the fact that I was at that assembly, and so he's bringing up the charter of our Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, which is quite interesting. And then I finally get to cross-examine him, and he's like, "Oh, it's 4 o'clock. We're out of time." And that's it. I didn't even get to cross-examine him yet, and that's where we're at today. But I forgot to mention the most important part is when we got to the courtroom on March 29th, we all go in the courtroom for the 2:30 time. Herbs is not there. Herbs is down at stairs at registry. He came up and went right back downstairs. And then the Crown is like, oh, he's going to be late. He's at registry preparing for something for the case. So his worship is like, okay, we'll wait for him, which is ridiculous. They would never wait for us, right?
Yeah, no.
But they're going to wait for this cop. A half hour, the worship literally leaves and goes in his chamber. He's like, call me when he's back. Half hour goes by. It's 3 o'clock instead of 2:30, which was my time. And then he's like, you've been served. And that's when he serves me a small claims lawsuit in BC Provincial Court for slander and libel. Right in the courtroom, not outside the courtroom. He serves me in the courtroom, and he held up the courts to do his personal affairs in official police capacity. There's a term, in official police capacity. He's working for the taxpayers, and he's doing his own personal vendetta. I mean, it's a huge conflict of interest and unprofessionalism for an RCMP, a person to.
Yeah, you're not allowed to do your own personal effects while you're in official capacity.
At work.
Yeah,
it's so ridiculous. And I say to his worship, your worship, he just threatened and intimidated a witness in your courtroom with a civil lawsuit. And he says, I don't care. That's not my problem. Take it up with the RCMP or someone else. So it's really sad what's going on with the worship here. It really seems prejudiced right off the bat.
Yeah, well, it seems like they don't like you for a reason. I mean, like for whatever reason.
Well, you got to understand, Herbs has been testified in front of this judicial justice 100 times, right? Every week, these guys are testifying in front of that same judge, right?
Yeah.
They have relationships formed between all these guys. And here I am showing up, the only person presenting a case in traffic court that he's probably seen in months, because nobody does this in traffic court. Like all the ones I watched in front of me, it's, I'm the first person who's actually like becoming a lawyer essentially and having to plead a real case, right? So then, that he's like, okay, he reschedules and he books a continuance, which I haven't received notice of yet. I'll get that in the future, like a third court date, a continuance, where I can then cross-examine Herbs. And that will be a lot of fun. And I'm really looking forward to that, because you can imagine I've been preparing for this for, 50 hours, and I'm waiting for my turn to work the situation and reveal the truth through my cross-examination. And then, now I have this lawsuit that he wrote in hand from the provincial courts in Small Claims BC. I go on the Small Claims BC website. I look up small claims. I look up slander and libel. It brings you to the page what you can sue for and what you can't sue for in Small Claims Provincial Court. It specifically says we do not deal with libel and slander. So our Herb's investigational skills.
Wait, where do you actually file small slander? What court do you go to for that?
Supreme Court. Only Supreme Court will hear libel and slander or harassment cases.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but it's funny because here you have an RCMP. Here you have an RCMP who investigates, but he didn't take 5 minutes to research before filing a small claims lawsuit and spending $236 to file for over $5,000. He sued me for the maximum of $35,000. That's the maximum in small claims. And it won't even go, if it makes it to preliminary, it'll be thrown out, whether it even makes it there or not, because they don't deal with this. He has to file in Supreme Court. And as you know, all of a sudden you have a lawyer for $5,000 a day, and you're paying for a production in Supreme Court, and it could cost hundreds of thousands of dollars, right?
Right. So you can't, well, I guess, yeah, small claims is for the purpose of like
damages to your personal property. Somebody
broke my fence. Somebody crashed their ATV into my fence, and then they drove off, and I saw them. I got pictures. Judge Judy, help me out.
So, I mean, as soon as I got home, I started researching the small claims lawsuit, and it came right on the front. It's literally the first page under small claims. It's like what you can't sue for.
And libel and slander is on there, right on there.
Libel and slander, along with many other things that you can't sue for. There's a list. There's only a few things you can sue for, and again, it's property. Like somebody smashed my car's windows on my personal driveway, etc. Roommates, tenants, certain things that doesn't do with, right? Okay. I had a little chuckle because I'm like, wow, you got to remember, we're in court with this judicial justice now twice, with Herbs and a prosecutor, and all this work in the background for tickets that are $327. And he just spent $236 to sue me, and he just lost his 220. Like, who's paying the tickets now, right?
It's really, really odd. So, like, what's stopping you from just going, oh, I'll pay the money, I just want this over with?
Oh, absolutely, for the point. Yeah, I mean, all the work I'm doing, I could have made a lot more money if I was working than this
Yeah,
loss.
absolutely.
And honestly, I wouldn't lose the tickets anyways, but Herbs doesn't know that yet. Because he doesn't know what my evidence is. But maybe I'll be like, lose one of the 3 tickets. Maybe $100 I'll lose, $109, right? If things go bad for me, essentially. That's what I'm telling you. If I made some mistakes, I would only owe for one of the tickets. And but it's the point. So what's going on is this is Herbs versus public interest. I am representing the public interest. We are allowed to film police. We're allowed to film in public. It's, you're not allowed to ask me for ID. I am being targeted because for my charter of right to assemble and to associate with the Freedom Convoy and to document in it. I am representing the public interest. And that's why this is so important.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's fair. That's you're sacrificing a lot, because like this is all time that you could be doing other work instead of
for sure,
instead of researching what the laws are and how it all works, and then also spending the time to go down there and then have them sit you there until 4 o'clock and then tell you, oh yeah, we're about to hear you. Sorry, off you go.
You waste your whole day.
That almost feels intentional. I mean, like, you can't get inside their head and know what they're thinking, but it feels like as if that's just messing you around. You know what I mean? Like,
oh yeah, abusive process. Again, not giving me full disclosure, not saying who the witness is. It's harassment. I am absolutely being harassed, and it's continuing to this day. And so I have to stand up and do what's right. And I don't let people get away with bullying. And that's how I move forward. And just yesterday, I was at the courthouse. I filed my reply and, essentially stated all these things. And there's actually something called the anti-SAPS law. Essentially, it's a protection for people being sued where they know they can't win, so to silence people. So it's actually applied to big corporations, like Monsanto and all this. This is what it's originated from. And so all of a sudden, you're a journalist and you're writing a story about Monsanto, about the water is making people sick. And then Monsanto says they sue you in civil lawsuit saying for defamation, right? Slander, libel, defamation. They sue you. And they have millions of dollars and millions of lawyers. And there's a law called anti-SLAPS for that to state that you can have it thrown out because they're actually using the lawsuit to silence people, to remove stuff from the internet, your videos, your comments, any opposition to these corporations. And this is ironically a little bit what Herbs has been doing, is he's been threatening me with these lawsuits, but he has no chance of winning. The law is very straightforward. There's no expectation of privacy for a police officer on duty. I did not slander. I never slandered or libel. So slander is verbally, libel is internet, everything else, paper. Mm-hmm. And I never said anything that's untrue. A lot of people, I get comments, it's like, 1% of the comments are like, oh, you're slandering them. It's like, they don't even know what these terms mean. You have to be making up, fabricating something that will hurt their character in the community. It's like this person making up things about somebody. Everything I'm talking about is talking about my scenario and what is actually happening. Facts. I have all facts and I can back them up with the video footage. Everything is backed up by video footage. I'm explaining the process and talking about what's going on. There's no slander. Calling somebody a pedophile and then making that, and they're not, and that would be slander, right? I'm not saying anything that didn't happen.
Don't you have to prove malice as well? You have to prove malice to prove slander and libel, like they did it with malicious intent.
Oh, there's actually on that, I wish I had my notes with me that I could just read it to you, but essentially you can actually say things with malice, not that I did, but you can say truth with malice that can actually, affect a person in their community. But if it's truth, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at all.
No. If it's true, it doesn't matter. But it has to be untrue and with some sort of malicious intent to harm the person in some sort of financial or whatever way. But it doesn't sound like he likely has a case for that.
No, he's got zero case, and if he wants to take the Supreme Court, is Herbs ready to pay $100,000 out of his own pocket to lose? And I would just represent myself. I would just figure it out and do it. I have the time. I don't really have a job, so I can do it.
Well, and then there's the countersuits, right? So you would be able to countersue him.
Oh yeah, in Supreme Court, I could sue him for harassment and the whole process, and it's all documented, right? But that's Supreme Court. Essentially, it's a dog and pony show that you're paying for, and the small claims court is just anybody can do, and it only costs $236. And of course, I didn't countersue because you can't countersue for harassment in small claims court, right? So I just
can you not countersue for lost wages and time away from work if it's frivolous?
Oh, I don't remember that specific, but I'd have to really prove the onus on that. But I didn't bother with that. I just replied essentially, and these are the reasons why this is not libel and slander in my dispute.
Oh, fair enough. I remember there was a pretty public case, but this one occurred in the United States, and that was with some YouTuber and Carl Benjamin, who is known as Sargon of Akkad. He did a piece on this particular YouTuber. Now the person took him to court for slander, and so he fought back. He said, "Okay, I'll take you. I'll countersue," and he countersued for all the damages and time spent and lawyers and all that stuff. She ended up having to pay him like $25,000, something like that.
But it can cost. Lawyers are $5,000 a day if you're going to get one to represent you in Supreme Court. Like it really. Even when I looked up all the cases of people who won, the biggest winnings are very small in slander court because there's no physical harm. There's nobody getting kicked in the face. There's no $500,000 payout or $1 million payout.
Pain and suffering, man. I always get a kick out of that.
And for you as a news person like me, you should understand that you have also, it's not slander and libel because you have fair comment based on provable facts on video. So if you're doing a story on somebody and you think it could come back at you, with a bullshit lawsuit, keep your facts. Make sure you document your stories. And when you put out a story, if it's a dangerous story, make sure you keep your facts for down the road because there is fair comment. And there's also a rule called responsible communication on a matter of public interest. So it is in the public interest for me to share my story about the RCMP, and there's a responsible communication. So this is one of the, if you look it up, responsible communication, it's right there as a defense for slander and libel. And then again, truth in substance and in fact. And it's my video account in public record. And so there's several protections for that as well.
Have you looked into talking to any actual lawyers about maybe going after that police division and saying that this is all being done
in Supreme Court?
Yeah, this is all being done within their capacity so he's doing this as in his capacity as an RCMP in the courtroom. So you could say this is an officer of the peace actually harassing me in a public setting in this capacity and whatnot, right? I don't know. Have you considered?
Okay, so I mean, my only option is Supreme Court if I really want to take them for damages. What you're talking about is contacting the police bosses and saying, "Is this professional conduct for Conrad Herbs to be suing me and doing this in official police capacity?" Right? No, it's not. And eventually I contacted the supervisor and he ignores me. So it really gets, you call the RCMP, they don't call you back.
No, I don't mean talking to an RCMP. I mean talking to a lawyer, like an actual lawyer who would.
Oh, okay. Yeah. And I did talk to some lawyers and they say, because I didn't get kicked in the face, it's not worth it. There's not enough money for it to be interested in.
Oh, so there's not enough damages because you didn't sustain any injuries.
Yeah. Let me pause you right here. This phone is going to die. I'm going to switch you onto my other phone, so we
Okay.
can finish the conversation.
Yeah, no problem.
So we'll take a little pause.
Yeah, yeah, no problem.
Okay, I'll get you soon. Bye.
All right. You back in here. Whoop, there we go. Oh, and you're huge now, so I'm gonna shrink you down. You don't have to change anything. I'll do it
I know I'm
there.
trying to zoom in on you, but I can't even do it on this phone for some reason. It doesn't zoom in. Oh well, whatever. I'll just talk to you. I won't see you very clearly.
Fair enough.
You're like a little speck on the bottom of the screen.
Oh yeah, sorry. Well, so I send out the video so you can see both. So you're seeing what's actually in the
I see
podcast.
your movie maker video editor. I see that. Yeah, and of course I couldn't send you like a lot of little screenshots that I've already captured, and maybe brought the brightness up if you want to have pictures when you edit your podcast with background photos and stuff.
So normally I don't even do editing. I'm just gonna be editing out the little breaks here where
Oh, okay.
yeah. So it's just like
Oh, yeah.
the
Well,
raw podcast.
gotcha.
What I might do, I'm not sure what I might do. Like if I might talk about this as a video, like a short video, and then allude to the long podcast, so people
Yeah.
can check that out. Because I know like the algorithm picks up long versus short videos to completely different, but
Hmm.
the podcasts are picking up. I do them once a week, so every Thursday they air as a premiere in the evening, and then
Oh, that's a great idea.
yeah, and
Yeah.
then everybody can be
I
in the chat while it's premiering. It's really cool.
Yeah, I know. I do premieres on everything. Like it's anything I'm doing that's like at least a few minutes long, I'll do a premiere on it. I think it helps with the engagement of YouTube as well.
Big time, big time. I have no shortage of engagement these days when it comes to like, oh my comment sections are just flooded. It's amazing. The uh, the people are very engaging, very eager to tell their side of the thing.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I mean also for the YouTube algorithm, by doing premieres, I think it helps. Like when your YouTube, I remember when my YouTube channel was going crazy, in January, February, March, April. Well, of course, like I said, it was censored in February 21st, but it was still getting some 100,000 instead of 2 million. But how was your channel doing at that time? Were because you were at 30,000, I remember, and now you just keep moving up.
Yeah, so yeah, I got to about 60,000 at the end of the convoy,
Hmm.
and that was crazy. But then, uh, yeah, I just kept doing it. I didn't stop, and so it
Hmm.
was a big explosion. Of course, everybody was interested in the convoy, and then I kept going, and a lot of people fall off. It's just the way it works when you have like a viral thing. And then
Yeah.
there was a lot of people who settled in. Were like, I like this. I'm keen on hearing the news every Monday through Friday in the mornings. So that became the norm for what we were doing on the channel. It was amazing,
And
and I really enjoy it.
And obviously I learned about you after that fact, but what was your YouTube channel before? Like mine was motorcycle racing and the lifestyle of a motorcycle racer. And you were doing a mechanic channel. Like what's the backstory?
So for me, I started on another channel. I was doing automotive DIY videos. I had a friend of mine. I did it with him, but we would just kind of like make comedy out of it. Like I always just like
Hmm.
making videos, but making them more fun because I thought DIY videos are so dry and boring. And so we did that. It turns out that's a whole lot of work, and then you get burnt out on doing that kind of thing. And it had marginal success. It was fun. Um, but then I started a second channel called Clyde's Soapbox, where I was like, I'm gonna just do like
Oh.
vlogging and try different things, talk about life and different topics. And I stayed away from politics at the time, but got into a bunch of other stuff, whether it was cars or repairs or what I do for a living or family talking about stuff. I gave myself a challenge, like I'm gonna make videos like every day for like 3 months, and I did that, and it was crazy and burnt out on that too, right? And then I went off and I met some other creators. I was doing political commentary on other channels for a while, doing live streams and whatnot, and then finally came back to my own channel, and just wanted to, I was unsure of what I wanted to do. I wanted to talk about stuff and have topics.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know I was going to go full bore into politics, but then the convoy happened.
Yeah. So
And
again, like just the timing of it all, right? And you had the ability to do it.
it's funny because I had a New Year's resolution that January where I said, instead of staying up late, I'm going to wake up super early in the morning and I'll do my like free time stuff in the morning and then go to bed early after work. And so I just had all this idle time right as the convoy popped off. And I was like, okay, well, I'm making videos. That's all I wanted to do. And I'd make 2, 3 in the morning before going to work. And then I'd go to work and then watch the numbers and just go, what is going on? What? Really?
Yeah. And which is new, which is totally new compared to the regular videos that we were producing.
Yeah. So, and yeah, with a lot of people wanting to hear my take on stuff, I was like, okay, well, I'll keep going. I'm not going to stop. Mm-hmm. And instead of just kind of sticking with convoy related stuff, because, the convoy came, it happened, it was exciting and it was tragic and all of that stuff. I got into what I knew was the message that I was putting forward during the convoy, which was my absolute disappointment with the news, and the news just absolutely just coming out and lying to everybody. And I was like, you think that's a one-off with the convoy? No. They're doing it with everything. And it really is a showcase of how the news is not telling us the truth. And going over articles and showing what this agency might be saying versus this agency, and what people on social media are saying. And Twitter, of course, is where you get a lot of the news. And I originally told,
now you do.
Well, I told people, I said, well, I go to Twitter so you don't have to, because it's a bit of a cesspool, right? And like,
oh yeah, or Telegram.
Yeah, see, I don't do Telegram, but I guess you could get on all those forums. You will get news there too. It's a bit more of a tighter thing where you got to figure out which communities people are talking in.
Yeah.
So
you join so many, and it can just, it's so much work and so much time involved. It was funny because I was at a rally. I was at a rally for the RCM. It was outside the RCMP building, and this is where I met this woman, Teresa, and she's like, "Are you on Signal or are you on Telegram?" And I'm like, "This isn't maybe like January 1st or something." And I'm like, I don't even know what you're talking about. What is Telegram? What's Signal? And then it's all of a sudden, that was where there was a ton of information during the Freedom Convoy and before and then after it as well.
So people like to use Signal because they think that it's encrypted or whatever. That's the advert for it. But like, if you use Signal, everybody knows your phone number. Like straight up, I know. Like, everybody knows your phone number, and you can look back. You can search people's phone numbers to find info on them. Like, it's not really like the encrypted thing that everybody thinks it is, but whatever. Twitter is the place. That's where all the people, the politicians are saying their things, and it's funny to watch them just like spout their BS, like as if they even believe it. It's really, really interesting place. But you can't take yourself too seriously, right? Like, you go on these places and you see people, like we even heard about Ocasio-Cortez, the Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez in the U.S. She had her her sock account, like her fake account, got leaked, and everybody found out what it was. She deleted it, but there was a Wayback Machine, and they just saw like all the vitriolic stuff that she was just putting out there. Like, I don't tweet like that. Like, I go on Twitter to read other people's tweets, and then I'll give my 2 cents here and there, and I'll promo my videos and that kind of thing. But like, wow, the stuff people are willing to say on an open platform that anybody could just go and read is beyond me. It's amazing. We live in another planet anymore. Like, I grew up in the 80s and 90s. This is another planet.
I'm born in 84. What about you?
82.
Oh, you're older than me.
I'm the senior. I'm your senior. Yeah.
Yeah. Hilarious. Yeah, and I'm new to Twitter. Like, honestly, I never used Twitter. I wish I used it back in the day, and that's why I don't have any following on there. For me, I just started using it after Elon Musk started doing the Twitter files, right? And
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, now let's give it a try. It's not censored.
Did you hear about him on the BBC? Did you see that clip?
Recently?
Yeah.
No.
Oh, there's a clip where the BBC host says, well, there's so much dangerous things being said on Twitter. And he says, oh, can you give me an example? And he says, at first he says, I see so much like hate on Twitter. And he says, oh, can you give me an example? He's like, well, I'm not going to give you an example right now. He's like, well, no, you called it out. You said that you see a lot of hate. Tell me one thing that you see that's hateful. And he says, well, I heard about it from some other place. Like, you heard about it? Wait, you heard about it? No, tell me about it. What did you hear? Can you give me one example? Yeah. And the guy's like, I think we should just change the subject. He's like, you lied. Elon Musk calls him out. He says, you lied. You lied to me. And that was trending on Twitter today. You lied. With
that
really?
Clip.
Yeah, nice. It's hilarious. He calls out the BBC. And it was almost like a Kathy Newman moment, the interview with Kathy Newman and Jordan Peterson, where she just gets stumped trying to obviously, like, that's a move to say, like, your platform's bad and it has all this hate, and he turned it right around just by asking for a bit of evidence. Like, it really wasn't that hard. It's amazing, the shocking journalism that we have these days. It's no wonder people turn to people like you and myself, right?
Well, I mean, it's just a perfect, for me, a recent example is reading what the Calgary mayor was spouting off in there. Like, it's just so crazy. Like you said, these politicians are on there and they're just posting their opinions that people should be arrested for exercising their rights to protest. It's just it's so crazy. And yeah, it's a platform for politicians. It really feels like it. And they were super pissed off when Elon Musk took over. And that was the most hilarious part. And they're like, oh, he's ruining Twitter, and blah, blah, blah. And that's their platform. So it's how ironic, right, that Elon did that.
Yeah, he made Twitter great again. Because it was great back in the day. And then it got really bad because the social justice warriors all took over. And I even hate that term, social justice warrior. Like, a warrior traditionally is someone who puts themselves in harm's way, right? Like, that's what you would expect. Those people never put themselves in harm's way. No, not at all. They're just on their keyboards and they're trying to cancel people and get people fired from their jobs. It's horrible, and that's what needs to be canceled, is cancel culture itself. Like, cancel culture, we gotta get rid of that. And this is the method. This is the method to the madness. Openness, shedding light on the things that people say. The answer to bad speech is more speech. We should always remember that.
Well, I mean, that's what they're always trying to shut everybody up by throwing out their crazy, statements. And if you just kind of ask them, like, what do you mean? Like you said earlier, like, well, and they don't have an answer. You start asking more questions, right?
Yeah, well, you made a statement. Prove it. Show me why, where that is the case. And
debate. I mean, that's what free speech is debate. And there is no debate on CensorTube on subjects that are censored, right? They eliminated debate about all the subjects we initially breached on earlier on this chat.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. People don't necessarily want to debate. Like, so I'll say it outright. I don't encourage, like, people coming on to debate me. I don't mind having discussions with people, but I got so used to this idea of internet blood sports, like people have debates, and this is why I don't have the chat when I record these sessions with people, because, like, if I disagree with you, I don't want you to think like, oh, he's getting goaded on by the chat, or you know what I mean, or people feed off of this thing, this aggregate of opinions that are happening online. So to deter from the whole internet blood sports, when I have a discussion with somebody, it's like, no, I'll pre-record it. There's no chat. There's no chat in the chat room. There is when it airs, but when I have the conversation with somebody, it's just me and you and Joe, of course. Joe's here to help out. We haven't heard from Joe at all tonight. Yeah, just staying quiet. No, but you're definitely
Yeah.
here.
Still here though.
I'm gonna just pause for. I'm gonna click on the picture here to see if I can bring it up full screen on this one. It's gonna turn it sideways probably.
Oh, yeah,
Can
you
we
went
just?
sideways.
Yeah, yeah, because it's way better to actually see and talk to you instead of just kind of.
Oh,
Let me
instead of
see. Oh
just
wait, can
hearing
you
me.
zoom? Yeah, because on this phone I couldn't zoom out. There we go.
This
Can
is
you
going to
center
be
that now?
one of those chats where it's just all technical difficulties, and we're just going to roll with it. We're just going to roll with that. Maybe even unedited and completely. I just won't even edit out the tech difficulties. We'll just go with it. No, but
Special. Yeah, it's a very.
definitely awesome having you on though, Marcel. So like I said, I'd heard about you from so many people speak so highly of you, and this is actually my first time. So we scheduled this right from DMs, and then here we are in a proper conversation with each other. And it's interesting because I don't often get to meet people who are in the exact same position as me. I'm trying to talk to a lot of people who are experts in fields or whatever, like lawyers or nurses or people who are affected by this whole thing, but not from the same exact perspective as I've come from. But it's amazing because you and I we both come from different worlds, but we end up in the same sphere, influence sphere. I don't know. I don't know. I don't like the social media influencer tag, but
Yeah, and again, all by accident. I never thought I would ever be reporting the news, and I started doing like a daily rumble not too long ago, before I got too busy with his herbs lately. And it was again, just like you, every morning I'd wake up and then like, okay, I'd make a summary of all the news, and then I would go through it and just talk about the 10 or 15 subjects of the day, and I'm like, make a little teaser for YouTube and make the full version on Rumble. And it's like the first 5-10 minutes is YouTube, and then all of a sudden, okay, YouTube's over. We can finally talk. And you said it's free. And I remember like Tina was saying, it's like, oh, you just sound so much freer as soon as you got off of YouTube and went on to Rumble. No way.
yeah, fair enough. So you spend a lot of time on Rumble. I mirror my stuff onto Rumble, but I don't make exclusive content for over there. I noticed a lot of creators are starting to do that because of that freedom that they have.
Yeah, like Redacted as an example. They'll do their show and say, okay, and now let's move everybody to Rumble. And then all of a sudden, everybody just starts to go on Rumble in the beginning to avoid that issue, right? Of having to move to finish the show or the second half, essentially.
Yeah, really big notable one recently was Louder with Crowder. He's done that. And instead of just doing an X amount of time and then shifting it over, he actively censors like a bunch of the stuff that goes on during the show. So if you're watching it on YouTube, it'll just go to music occasionally.
Yeah, that's a good one, huh?
Like throughout the show, it'll just go to music, and then it'll say like if you want the uncensored version, go to Rumble, and you can watch it there. So you'll miss parts during the show instead of just missing the last half of it.
Oh yeah. And somebody's going and editing them out after post production. And I mean, and we've both been doing this every single day, and it's so much work to edit, and people don't realize like it takes all your life if you want to edit videos, and it's so much nicer to just do a one take, put it out there. I mean, how many times do you make a story and you actually don't even watch it before you publish it, right?
Almost every day.
Right, because you don't have time to watch your own stuff, right?
Yeah, I don't have time to watch my own stuff, and I don't have time to edit. So like I just learned how to do stuff in one take, like actually, because like I do it all in my studio, so I have live software that I can share the screen and show what's going on live, and then just record it like that, and in post I spend more time on my thumbnail than I do on like post production.
I know, and you can lose a lot of time on a thumbnail. I know. It's you sometimes like the artist in you just keeps going. You're like, I mean, I'm also an artist, right? I have a fine arts diploma in university, and I learned about video production in university, and graphic design and photography and darkroom, and drawing and painting, and I became an abstract painter like a couple years ago as well. And, you know, I sell paintings to people, you know, in the USA and all over, you know, just shipping them. So, you know, it's an art. Video is an art. And I used to spend 50 hours to edit a street bike video. Like I go to the track, I'm filming people at the track, I'm filming in the pits, I'm filming on track, and I edit it all into like a TV show, like a Netflix show. And it takes 50 hours to edit, you know, like a half-hour show, or it could be an hour show, but 50 hours is an incredible amount of time and amount of work that people don't realize.
It's a whole
sometimes.
week full time. Like it's a whole week.
For no pay usually.
Yeah,
right?
and you just hope that it does well, and you get some sort of.
Well, this is even before you'd monetize on YouTube. You know, I was doing all this because it's my passion.
Oh, okay.
My passion was to race motorcycles, and I love to make documentary films. And so I just, you know, to help get sponsors, and more recognition to help get for racing. But, you know, I would have made a lot more money if I just had a job and pay for my tires that way.
Yeah, that's one way to do it. But holy cow, yeah, if you have the passion for it, then you want to spend more time doing that thing. And I was just lucky that you know, I stumbled on this, and this is my passion. But I still pull wrenches. I pull wrenches every day for 8 hours and do this. So that's why I can't edit.
That's impressive. That's impressive for sure. And that you can't even touch the editing. And like I've been doing travel TV shows, you know, we went to Mexico and I did a full Mexico show. It was like 45 episodes, and I edited them all on my smartphone. I edited them all on a Note. I have like Note 9, Note 10s. And you film actively as you're filming, you film it like, so you don't have to edit it. Just, you know, here's a 10-second clip, a minute clip, and you put them all together, and, you know, maybe cut out a little fillers in between. And then every day you put out a film every day. And so that's what I was doing, traveling in the Kootenays, traveling on the island, started doing travel shows.
That's crazy work. I can't believe that. That's a ton of work. I mean, I just went to Japan for a month, and that was like to try to make content while I was away from my usual routine was just mind blowing. Like it was impossible. So like, I ended up making, I believe, YouTube told me, right? YouTube will tell you when you're not doing well, and it said, you made 38 videos less than normal this month. I was like, oh wow, okay.
Oh yeah, for sure. And what is based on algorithm or based on your analytics? What is your audience's age? You know, what is your typical age audience? Like I told you, mine 33% is 55 to 65.
Yeah, similar demographics. A lot are in the older crowd. I think I have a lot more in the like 35 to 45 range than maybe you do. But yes, a big chunk of it is in the boomer class. There's a lot of boomers.
And then males, mine's like 75% male, you know, and the other 25-30% female. It depends how the analytics go.
Yeah, I think it was about 20, 25. I haven't looked at it in a while, but about 25%.
It's interesting. Why?
Because when I did automotive content, it was like 2% female. It was like less than 2.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. But even the Freedom Convoy and Daily News, you know, your podcast, I don't understand why it's predominantly male still. I'm not sure why.
Yeah, I don't know. That just you'd have to ask the ladies that. Why do most ladies not want to tune into news and politics and that stuff? Why is that there's a gravity for men towards those subjects? That's that's a cultural thing that I guess you could dive into for that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Hey, I found a statistic here. To put it in context, according to OpenSlate, men make up 90% of the viewers of YouTube. So the fact that you are below that 90% mark means that you are more equitable than the vast majority of channels on YouTube.
Hey, there you go. We're more equitable. We
just love that word.
Oh, I can't stand that word. That word is just awful for me. Yeah, so
it's just like you said, you know, I used to be probably 98% male with my superbike content, and now we've actually balanced it out. It literally is 50-50, but like you said, it's just mostly males are on YouTube, period.
Yeah, so we actually have more of the female audience, both of us, than the average of the entire platform.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Yeah,
pretty
so
impressive.
we're doing pretty.
I think we're doing good.
We're doing good work.
Do we get it? What do we get, Joe? We get like a rainbow badge or something like that for that?
Susan's no longer there, but I'll put in good word for a nice rainbow badge.
Oh yeah, that's right. No more Susie Wojak. Oh no. She's gone. Susan Wojcicki. That's my nickname for her, Susie Wojak, like the Wojak meme.
Oh yeah.
You know?
You gotta put it on the screen now. We get it up there.
Oh yeah, the Wojak boys. I said they were the soy boys, right? The Wojak guys. Joe? Joe's pulling it up. He's getting that on there.
He's gonna show it. Yeah, you've lost me.
Oh, you don't know the Wojak? There's the two soy boys. Yeah, you got it. Oh no. Where's the Wojak meme? I think that's the standard one. But there was the two guys pointing at a thing. Oh, we lost Joe's audio.
So many memes these days.
I think that one specifically is Soy Jack.
Soy Jack. Okay, that's the right.
That guy right there.
Yeah, the memes, the Soy Jack.
And there's a lot of them now.
Wow, yeah, no, I haven't come across these. I've seen a lot of memes though, but yeah.
Oh, you don't know the Wojak meme? It's this style of art.
Yeah.
Is
this style
pictures.
of art, and there's a number of animators that are creating longer-ish form videos, sort of using this style of character as different characters in it. Then it's not very highly animated; it's very low budget, but it's most of them tend to be pretty based.
Yeah, it's usually just
Always
to get
with
the idea out there before the the spending time on the animation sort of thing. But yeah, Susie Wojak, she's not there anymore, so I don't know what kind of badges we would get for our inclusivity for the ladies in our audience. But we're always happy to have the ladies, and I'm sure they're in the chat right now celebrating this. As this is premiering tomorrow, which is today for them. But yeah, so Marcel, where are people going to find you now that you've lost one of your channels? And
yeah, well, so I lost Irnie Racing Reports, but what I was doing is, because anything you uploaded could be a misinformation strike or a hate strike if you're talking about Ukraine and Russia. I would always have multiple channels that I'd upload on the smaller channel, take the risk with the second channel, right? And to see if you get a strike before you upload it on your main news channel. And so when you're dealing with these strikes, that was the strategy. And of course, initially the channels were my motorcycle channels. So I'd lost, unfortunately, a lot of background of my motorcycle work on my second channel at the time, which was actually Irnie Racing Amsoil. And I turned it into Irnie Racing Reports. But so it's still, the main channel is still Marcel Irnie. It's youtube.com/IrnieRacing, and Irnie is spelled with an I. So again, just search Marcel Irnie, or you can search, police harassment, city of Kelowna, will pop up. And then I have a second channel called Irnie Racing News. And again, it's YouTube.com/Irnie Racing News, right? Mm-hmm. So, and then Rumble again is just, rumble.com/user/Irnie Racing. So it's just the theme going on is with my racing. It's kind of funny, because YouTube, you always have those YouTube people that try to talk to you because you have a big channel. Do you have those people reach out and they try to do little video calls with you and try to give you suggestions?
Yeah, I've had that a few times now. I'm not allowed to disclose what I was talking about, but it's basically they're trying to give you suggestions on how to do better and all of that. So it's positive.
Yeah, and they're always like, you should. Yeah. It's funny because my channel, it's like if you're doing a news channel, why do you have street bikes across the top, and why is my profile picture like a picture of me with a helmet on? And because I refuse to change, essentially, I'm an enthusiast and I will continue to do that. And it's just become my image as like the motorcycle guy who talks about the news, right? So it's just kind of ironic, and sometimes they demonetize your channels just based on, you're doing too much of one thing and your channel is not coherent, essentially, right?
Right. Yeah, so I've always tried to stick, like, once I kind of knew where my direction was, I just kind of stuck with that. When I had chats with YouTube, they were just making suggestions like, these are some new features maybe you didn't know about because you don't use them. Check these out, and some of it was good. I wasn't using the premieres, and they suggested that, and I think I think people like that.
Or
so.
live videos that, they're always like, you should try more lives. But yeah, for sure. This has been a good chat. I mean, we're probably over an hour now, huh?
We're right around the 2 hour mark. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it went that quick. It went that quick. I'm debating whether to leave the cuts just in. We'll just leave them.
Yeah, it's funny. And you're not too far from me, so you're only like 5-hour drive from here. So maybe one day we can actually shake hands. It'll be a great.
That would be amazing, because I'm looking to build like an in-house studio here to actually house guests, like to have people
Nice.
on the studio in person. So well, I mean, that might be in the stars coming soon. Once I actually have it built, have you actually come out here, and we'll have you in studio to talk.
Yeah. I've been meaning to go dirt bike on Vedder Mountain and McNutt, and so that's down there, not too far from you.
Yeah. There's
on the way
a lot to dirt bike. I could point you in the right direction. There's a lot around here. Yeah. Awesome. Well, thanks so much. And well, of course, good luck with the battles, and keep us posted on what's going on with that, because it seems like a hassle. It seems like a hassle to deal with. So we'll definitely.
I'd rather be dirt biking for sure.
All right.
Than dealing with studying to be a lawyer. But it is what it is. I gotta stand up for the public interest.
Well, thanks for joining.
All right. Thanks for having me. Cheers, guys. Have a good one.